Welcome back to Infinite Novel Audiobooks. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share Chapter 1, Awakening Twin Spirits. Sun Moon Empire, Ming City, south of the city. The Shen mansion was bathed in the warm light of late spring. Sunlight filtered through the carved window lattices, illuminating the bluestone slabs in the courtyard until they shone. Zyro Lion, come out quickly. Your father is about to return, and he will help you awaken your spirit soon. His mother, Zhu Ningxin, called out in a gentle voice from outside the door, filled with undisguised anticipation. The sound brushed against Shen Lion's heart like a feather, causing ripples to spread. Shen Lion, who was adjusting his clothes in his room, replied loudly upon hearing this. "I know, mother. I'll go to the awakening room right away." Shen Lion walked to the mirror and looked at his polished reflection. The mirror revealed a handsome young boy. Although his face still carried a touch of childishness, his bright eyes held a calmness and sharpness that belied his age. "Sigh, as expected of me, even this youthful face cannot hide my handsomeness." Shen Lion muttered to himself in the mirror, a confident smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Then Shen Lion straightened his collar and turned to walk toward the awakening room. The Shen Mansion's awakening room was located deep in the backyard, a simple yet solemn building. Shen Lion entered the room and sat on a soft brocade cushion, waiting for his father, Shen Meng. His gaze fell upon the hexagonal awakening array in the center of the room, but his thoughts drifted back 6 years. At that time, Shen Lion, having just experienced transmigration, opened his eyes to see his mother Zhu Ningxin's gentle face. In that moment, he knew he had arrived in a brand new world, but he did not know what kind of world it was. It wasn't until 3 months after he was born, while lying in his mother's arms, that he inadvertently overheard a conversation between his father, Shen Meng, and his mother. "Ningxin, I broke through to level 80 last night and have become a spirit Douluo." His father's voice carried irrepressible joy. Upon hearing this, his mother, Zhu Ningxin, said excitedly, "Brother Meng, that's wonderful. You've broken through to spirit Douluo at 35. You are truly a genius of our Sun Moon Empire." Hearing the words level 80, Spirit Douluo, and Sun Moon Empire, Shen Lion's heart skipped a beat. He instantly understood where he had transmigrated to. It was the Douluo Continent he had once been so familiar with. Moreover, judging by the name Sun Moon Empire, Shen Lion felt he must have arrived in the era of the second book, the unrivaled Tang sect. In the days that followed, Shen Lion lived like any other baby, eating and sleeping. But in his spare time, his mind was always calculating how to compete for resources with Yuhao in the future, and how to avoid the surveillance of that selfless god King Tang. However, an experience accompanying his mother to a banquet at the imperial palace completely changed his understanding. In the long corridor of the imperial palace, Shen Lion, held in his mother's arms, had his gaze drawn to a huge map hanging on the wall. The map clearly marked their entire Sun Moon Empire, but there was no trace of any other country. At first, Shen Lion thought it was just the Sun Moon Empire marking its own territory. But his mother seemed to notice his gaze and said to him gently, "Zyro Lion, are you looking at the map? Look, the entire continent is now occupied by our Sun Moon Empire, and the continent has been renamed the Sun Moon Continent. This is a glorious military achievement brought about by your grandfather." His mother's words were like a thunderclap, exploding in Shen Lion's mind. Only then did he realize that he was not in the timeline of the unrivaled Tang sect, but in the much earlier era of Douluo Continent. As for other timelines, Shen Lion did not think about them, because he had already transmigrated, so how could he be in just any timeline? The Sun Moon Empire had actually unified the entire continent. Thinking of this, Shen Lion's heartbeat accelerated involuntarily. Shen Lion took a deep breath, and his thoughts returned to reality. His gaze refocused on the awakening array before him. Then, not long after, the dark iron door of the awakening room made a heavy creaking sound, and 3 figures stepped in one after another. The old man in the lead wore a black brocade robe. As he walked with the stride of a dragon and the step of a tiger, the Pixiu emblem on his jade belt swayed slightly with his steps, and an aura of supreme authority flowed faintly around him. The middle-aged couple following closely behind, The man had a resolute face with eyes like torches beneath his sword-like eyebrows. The woman had a gentle temperament, yet her features revealed the elegance of royal nobility. They were exactly Shen Lion's parents, Shen Meng and Zhu Ningxin. Grandfather, Shen Lion's pupils constricted. He naturally recognized this old man, General Shen Long of the Sun Moon Empire, a level 98 super Douluo. The dragon-slaying blade at his waist, which had never been unsheathed, was the concrete symbol of the Shen family's legacy spirit. This legendary figure, who had once led thousands of troops to conquer the Sun Moon Continent and had voluntarily handed over military power after the Empire's unification, had actually come in person to witness his spirit awakening. With a wave of Shen Meng's hand, a warm piece of jade appeared from his storage ring. It was the awakening stone. In an instant, 8 spirit rings, yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 swirled and rose from beneath his feet, like a brilliant galaxy flowing in the room. Lioner, focus your mind. Shen Meng stepped into the center holding the awakening stone and said in a deep voice, "Do not suppress the power within you, let it follow your heart." Shen Lion took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. The moment his consciousness sank into his body, 2 completely different forces surged like turbulent undercurrents. One of them, a massive energy carrying an aura of destruction, was particularly striking. He tried to guide it, suddenly feeling a burning pain in his spine. When he opened his eyes again, a dragon shadow emitting a purple ghostly light appeared behind him, and tiny annihilation runes swirled between the dragon's claws. Purple Imperial Heaven-Destroying Dragon. Zhu Ningxin gently covered her red lips, her beautiful eyes wide, and then she continued. This is one of the 2 great legacy spirits of the royal family. General Shen Long stroked his beard and laughed, an excited light gleaming in his cloudy eyes. Good, good, this spirit, along with our Shen family's dragon-slaying blade, are both the most powerful existences on the Sun Moon Continent. My grandson's talent is truly blessed by heaven. Shen Meng's eyes were full of pride, and just as he was about to speak, he saw Shen Lion looking hesitant. Father, I seem to have another spirit. Before he could finish speaking, a long blade engraved with dragon patterns had already condensed in his palm, the ghostly light flowing on the blade, echoing the dragon's shadow behind him. Silence, deathly silence. The jade pipe in General Shen Long's hand fell to the ground with a clatter, and Shen Meng and his wife stood frozen on the spot. A moment later, hearty laughter shook the awakening room with a hum. Ha ha ha, twin spirits. My Shen family has actually produced a genius with twin spirits. Quick, test his innate spirit power. Shen Meng couldn't wait to take out the spirit power ball, his eyes full of anticipation. Shen Lion placed his hand on the crystalline sphere. Instantly, massive spirit power surged out like a bursting dam, and the spirit power ball erupted with blinding golden light, with the faint sound of a dragon's roar echoing within the light. Innate full spirit power. General Shen Long grabbed his grandson's shoulders, his aged voice filled with irrepressible ecstasy, and then he said, "The future of my Shen family will surely shine through the ages because of you." Zhu Ningxin hugged her son with red eyes, while Shen Meng's hands behind his back were clenched into fists, his chest heaving violently. Shen Meng knew that from this day on, their entire Sun Moon Empire would tremble at the name of this young boy. Chapter 2: Absorbing Whale Glue. Once the family's joy had subsided, General Shen Long said to Shen Lion, "Zyro Lion, you possess twin spirits, so you must choose one spirit to cultivate first. Which one are you planning to cultivate first?" Hearing his grandfather's words, Shen Lion thought for a moment and replied, "Grandfather, I want to cultivate the dragon-slaying blade first. Once I reach level 90, I will then cultivate the purple Imperial Heaven-Destroying Dragon. And at that time, I will add 10,000-year, or even 100,000-year spirit rings to the purple Imperial Heaven-Destroying Dragon." After hearing Shen Lion's words, General Shen Long said, "Good, let's start by cultivating the dragon-slaying blade. It just so happens that I don't have much to do usually, so from now on, I will guide your cultivation." Shen Lion nodded upon hearing this. As for his parents, Shen Meng and Zhu Ningxin, they naturally had no objections. After all, he was his biological grandfather, and a 98-level super Douluo at that. The family then left the awakening room. Once they were outside, they heard General Shen Long shout to someone ahead, "Lin Song, go to the spirit beast forest and capture a red-armored violent bear around 400 years old to serve as a spirit ring for my grandson. Lin Song was a man General Shen Long had brought out from the army. He was a 78-level spirit saint, whose spirit was the blazing flame spear. After hearing General Shen Long's words, Lin Song prepared to leave to find the spirit beast, but just then Shen Lion spoke up. "Grandfather, don't get a 400-year-old one, get an 800-year-old one." Upon hearing Shen Lion's words, Shen Meng quickly said, "You silly boy, what are you saying? The limit for a first spirit ring is around 400 years, anything higher will cause problems." Su Ningxin also chimed in from the side. "That's right, Zyro Lion. Mother knows you've been exercising and using many medicinal herbs to improve your physique, but you still cannot absorb an 800-year-old spirit ring." Hearing his father and mother's words, Shen Lion knew it was useless to talk to them, so he turned his gaze to General Shen Long and said, "Grandfather, please agree to it, I really have a way." Looking at his grandson's expression, General Shen Long didn't want to upset him, so he said to Lin Song, "Then take some men and catch 3 of them, one 400-year-old, one 600-year-old, and one 800-year-old. General Shen Long figured it was just a matter of convenience, so he might as well have them all caught. Hearing General Shen Long's words, Shen Lion happily said to him, "Thank you, grandfather." General Shen Long said, "All right, now that I've followed your request to catch an 800-year-old red-armored violent bear, tell me about this method you mentioned to absorb it." Hearing General Shen Long, Shen Lion replied, "Grandfather, I saw in a book that consuming whale glue can enhance one's physique, which is why I want to try for an 800-year-old spirit ring. It just so happens that our Shen family treasury has an 8,000-year-old piece of whale glue, which is just enough for me." As for what book it was, Shen Lion naturally wouldn't say it was Douluo Continent, the unrivaled Tang sect. Hearing Shen Lion's words, General Shen Long, Shen Meng, and Zhu Ningxin all looked at Shen Lion with strange expressions, because in their common knowledge, whale glue had always been used as an aphrodisiac. Even that 8,000-year-old piece of whale glue in the Shen family treasury had been a mischievous gift from Zhu Ningxin's younger sister, Shen Lion's aunt Su Ningyu, when Shen Meng and Zhu Ningxin got married. Now all 3 of them assumed that Shen Lion had read a book he shouldn't have, but because he was too young to understand it, he had misinterpreted the function of the whale glue. Shen Lion naturally noticed the strange expressions on their faces and said, "It's true, I saw it in a book. If you don't believe me, we can test it." Then Shen Lion called out to the maid waiting nearby, "Zyro, go and retrieve that piece of whale glue from the treasury." After hearing Shen Lion's words, the maid named Zyro glanced at Zhu Ningxin. Only after Zhu Ningxin nodded at her did she go to retrieve the item. Then the Shen Lion family walked toward the main hall of the Shen mansion to wait. Soon, the 4 family members waiting in the main hall saw Zyro arrive with the 8,000-year-old piece of whale glue. Seeing the whale glue, Shen Lion couldn't wait and reached out his hand. However, while his hand was still in midair, the whale glue was snatched away by General Shen Long. General Shen Long then said to Shen Lion, "Zyro Lion, is the method you mentioned really effective?" After hearing this, Shen Lion said, "Trust me, grandfather." Hearing Shen Lion's words, General Shen Long decided to give it a try, but he didn't dare to let Shen Lion consume this 8,000-year-old piece of whale glue directly. Thus, General Shen Long channeled his spirit power into a blade and cut a small piece off the whale glue in his hand. He then said to Shen Lion, "Then let you consume this small piece first to see if it really has any effect." Shen Lion nodded in agreement. Then, following Shen Lion's instructions, General Shen Long used his spirit power to refine the small piece of whale glue. Once the whale glue had softened, Shen Lion eagerly took it and consumed it. Then Shen Lion began to use his spirit power to refine the whale glue. The other 3 kept their eyes fixed on Shen Lion, fearing that something might go wrong. Then the 3 of them saw Shen Lion's complexion and body slowly begin to flush, and subsequently, as Shen Lion refined it, his complexion began to slowly return to normal. Time passed, and half an hour later, Shen Lion finally finished refining it, when he opened his eyes. General Shen Long hurriedly pulled Shen Lion up and began to examine him thoroughly from head to toe. Soon after the examination, General Shen Long discovered that there were no problems with Shen Lion's body, and indeed, just as Shen Lion had said, his physique had grown a bit stronger. Seeing that General Shenlong had finished his examination but hadn't spoken yet, Shen Meng and Zhu Ningxin panicked and hurriedly asked him, "Father, how is Zyro Lion? Is he all right?" After hearing this, a look of joy appeared on General Shenlong's face, and he said to the two, "Zyro Lion is fine," and just as he said, after consuming the whale glue, Zyro Lion's physique has improved significantly. Hearing General Shenlong's words, Shen Meng and his wife Zhu Ningxin felt relieved and said, "That's good." At this moment, Shen Lion said, "See, it really is effective." Then Shen Lion turned his gaze back to the large piece of whale glue. General Shenlong naturally noticed Shen Lion's gaze and said to him, "Zyro Lion, you have proven that whale glue can enhance one's physique, but I just examined your body and discovered that your physique is not strong enough to absorb this entire piece of whale glue at once. Therefore, you need to absorb it in several sessions." Shen Lion nodded in agreement. Then over the next few days, with the help of General Shenlong, Shen Lion finally absorbed the entire piece of whale glue. Finally, after General Shenlong's check, he said happily to Shen Lion, "Zyro Lion, now that you have finished absorbing the whale glue, I have just checked your physique. Your current physique is comparable to that of a spirit grandmaster and is sufficient to absorb an 800-year-old spirit ring." Chapter 3 First Spirit Ability, Crimson Flame Soul Slash. After hearing General Shenlong's words, Shen Lion was very happy, as this was the first step in his journey on the Douluo Continent. In the days that followed, under General Shenlong's guidance, Shen Lion practiced the Shen family's dragon-slaying blade technique during the day, a blade technique passed down through many generations of the Shen family. At night, he cultivated the high-level meditation technique General Shenlong had given him to increase his spirit power. 7 days passed. The martial arts arena, still shrouded in morning mist, was permeated with the scent of rust and blood. As Shen Lion sheathed his blade and stood still, the frost condensed on the edge of the blade was melted into water droplets by the morning sun. During these 7 days, he swung his blade 3,000 times every day. The calluses on the web between his thumb and index finger had just scarred over before being cracked open again. Hearing his grandfather's summons, he stumbled toward the center of the martial arts arena before he could even return his wooden blade to his waist. He then saw the 3-zhang-tall black iron cage gleaming coldly in the morning light. The behemoth lurking in the shadows within the cage made the very air tremble. The red-armored violent bear inside the cage was the size of a typical house. Its dark brown fur was matted with black blood, and the wound on its left front paw, pierced by a flaming spear, was still smoking. Most terrifying of all was the diamond-shaped red mark on its forehead, which looked like a red-hot branding iron embedded in its bone armor, every time it let out a low growl. The red mark would glow with flowing light. This was precisely the red dragon subspecies bloodline that General Shenlong had spoken of. The half-foot-long sharp claws on the bear's paws were dug deep into the bottom of the cage, and every breath it took stirred up red mist. It was clearly severely injured by Lin Song's flaming spear. "Come here," General Shenlong's voice came, mixed with the sound of rattling iron chains. The old marshal stood before the cage, leaning on the hilt of his dragon-slaying blade. His black cloak snapped in the morning wind as he said to Shen Lion, "Do you see the blood crystal between its brows? That is its condensed energy core, which is perfect for strengthening the armor-piercing attribute of the dragon-slaying blade." General Shenlong tapped the cage wall with the back of his blade. The red-armored violent bear slammed into the iron bars, shaking the bluestone bricks of the entire martial arts arena. Shen Lion's heart rate accelerated suddenly. His palm, pressed against the cage wall, gradually grew hot, and his spirit power surged out unconsciously, causing a flash of fear to pass through the turbid eyes of the violent bear in the cage. General Shenlong suddenly shouted, "Lin Song, release the spirit beast." The instant the iron chains clattered to the ground, the red-armored violent bear lunged forward with a heaven-shaking roar. Shen Lion felt a foul wind rush toward his face. His vision was filled with swinging sharp claws and flashing red markings. He instinctively drew the wooden blade at his waist, but stopped abruptly when the blade was only 3 inches out of its sheath, because the red-armored violent bear had already been immobilized by his grandfather's spirit power. General Shenlong then said to Shen Lion, "Zyro Lion, take this opportunity. Take your weapon and end its life." Hearing General Shenlong's words, Shen Lion took out a dagger, stabbed it into the red-armored violent bear's eye, and ended its life. Shen Lion suppressed his nausea, sat cross-legged on the ground, and was surprised to find the phantom of the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon appear behind him uncontrollably, creating a strange resonance with his dragon-slaying blade spirit. "Steady your mind," General Shen Long's voice exploded in his ears like a great bell. Shen Lion felt his soul being violently yanked. The ferocity of the red-armored violent bear before death, the arrogance of the red dragon bloodline, and the massive energy of its 800-year cultivation all surged into his sea of consciousness at once, as if to tear his mental sea apart. Just then, the effect of the whale glue kicked in. Shen Lion felt countless tiny warm currents entering his meridians, wrapping around, crushing, and reshaping the violent spirit ring energy bit by bit. He saw his spirit power transform into golden chains, binding the mass of energy, a mixture of crimson and ink black, layer by layer. Meanwhile, the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon phantom behind him opened its massive maw, devouring the overflowing energy fragments one by one. "It's done," Shen Meng suddenly exclaimed. A first spirit ring rose around Shen Lion. Its color was not the usual yellow, but a yellow tinged with purple, somewhere between yellow and purple, and the spirit ring was wrapped in fine, crimson gold patterns. Even more shockingly, the moment the spirit ring fully formed, a layer of dragon scale-like red light appeared on the edge of the blade of the dragon-slaying blade phantom that had appeared out of thin air in Shen Lion's hand. General Shen Long's hand, which had been stroking his beard, suddenly tightened, his knuckles turning white from the force. He had seen countless geniuses awakening their spirit rings, but he had never seen a situation where the first spirit ring could cause a spirit mutation. Meanwhile, in the corner of the martial arts arena, the maid Zyro Zhu, who had been watching the battle quietly, was staring blankly while holding an empty jade bowl. Because she had seen that just now, when Shen Lion was absorbing the spirit ring, a nearly invisible red dragon phantom had risen from the corpse of the severely injured red-armored violent bear and slowly merged into the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon shadow behind the boy. Half an hour later in the martial arts arena, the crimson gold spirit ring wrapped around Shen Lion suddenly contracted, triggering a visible ripple when it submerged into his body. Shen Lion slowly opened his eyes. Crimson lightning remnants flashed like meteors deep within his pupils. The surging spirit power in his palm branded spiderweb-like cracks onto the bluestone bricks on the ground. Shen Lion then felt that his spirit power had reached level 13. Level 13, Shen Meng's golden-threaded armor creaked as he clenched his fists. He remembered that he was only level 11 when he absorbed his first spirit ring, and his father, General Shen Long, had only been level 12 back in his day, despite his exceptional talent. The veins on the back of General Shen Long's hand, which was leaning on the dragon-slaying blade, bulged, and the blade suddenly emitted a clear, resonant sound. This was not a spirit reaction, but joy within the bloodline. He looked at the undried blood beads on his grandson's temples, the price of his meridians expanding while absorbing a high-level spirit ring. Now, however, they were healing at a visible speed under the residual medicinal power of the whale glue, revealing new, pale gold skin. "Quick, try your spirit ability." Shen Meng's voice carried an imperceptible tremor. Shen Lion summoned his dragon-slaying blade. The moment he gripped the blade, the dragon patterns on it seemed to come alive and swim. First spirit ability, Crimson Flame Soul Slash. As Shen Lion shouted in a low voice, a crimson whirlwind suddenly swept through the martial arts arena. The trajectory of his blade's swing was not the Shen family's ancestral, mountain-splitting style, but rather carried a certain mysterious arc. Amidst the sonic boom of the blade tearing through the air, a 3-foot-long crimson gold blade aura broke through the air and severed the bluestone target post 10 zhang away at the waist. Most shockingly, when that section of the target post hit the ground, the cross-section gleamed with the luster of molten metal, and countless tiny sparks were still sizzling. Power amplification, at least 30%. General Shen Long's pupils constricted, and sparks from his pipe splashed onto his python-patterned robe, burning a scorch mark. After he had absorbed his first spirit ring in the past, he had tested his own first spirit ability, and it had only been a 20% amplification. Shen Meng rushed forward and grabbed his son's wrist. The moment his spirit power probed into his meridians through his fingertips, his expression became extremely strange. "This isn't right. There is dragon might in this power." Su Ningxin suddenly pointed at the target blade in Shen Lion's hand and exclaimed. Everyone then noticed that the blade of the dragon-slaying blade, which was already very exquisite, was now covered with fine, dragon-scale-like patterns. where the blade aura had just slashed, those patterns were emitting a faint red light. Shen Lion himself was also stunned. Wait, General Shen Long suddenly bent down to pick up a fragment of the broken target post, sniffed it lightly, and continued, "This is not a simple armor-piercing effect. This is the corrosion of dragon attribute energy." The old man's voice carried unprecedented shock as he continued to say to Shen Lion, "Zyro Lion, when you swung your blade just now, did you feel a resonance between your spirits?" Shen Lion closed his eyes to recall, and the red dragon aura that had drilled into the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon phantom, while he was absorbing the spirit ring, suddenly surged forth. Shen Lion then subconsciously circulated his spirit power. The purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon phantom behind him actually reached out its dragon claw and brushed over the dragon-slaying blade aura. In an instant, a circle of pale purple halo appeared on the edge of the originally crimson blade aura, and the shattered target post fragments turned into dust within the halo. Chapter 4: What's the point of going to the academy? The laughter of General Shen Long echoed like a booming bell across the martial arts arena. He looked at the spirit fusion ability that his grandson Shen Lion had just unleashed, his clouded eyes filled with gratification and amazement. On the ground, the trench, half a zhang deep, was still emitting wisps of blue smoke, and the surrounding bluestone tiles were all cracked, demonstrating the sheer power of that move just now. Then General Shen Long said with a hearty laugh, "Ha ha ha, I never expected it, grandson. Your twin spirits actually complement each other, allowing you to unleash such powerful strength." There was unconcealable pride in the old man's voice, and his calloused palm landed heavily on Shen Lion's shoulder. Nearby, Shen Meng and Zhu Ningxin embraced tightly, their eyes glistening with tears. As parents, they knew all too well just how powerful this talent of their son was. From the shock during his awakening of his twin spirits, to consuming the whale glue, and then to absorbing an 800-year spirit ring. Seeing Shen Lion's talent bloom at this moment, their hearts were filled with indescribable joy. On the martial arts arena, the tea brought by the maids steamed, interweaving with the laughter of everyone. The Shen mansion was immersed in a festive atmosphere. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, a few days passed. The morning sunlight filtered through the carved window lattice, spilling onto Shen Lion's practice blade, refracting a cold, sharp light. For these past few days, he had been immersed in the integration of his spirit and spirit ability, going from initial awkwardness to his current ease. Every swing of the blade carried a rhythm. As he finished the final move, cloud-breaking slash, the blade cut through the morning mist, startling the white doves under the eaves into flapping their wings and flying toward the horizon. Just as Shen Lion was preparing to return to his room, he suddenly heard familiar footsteps behind him. Turning around, he saw his grandfather, General Shen Long, walking over slowly, leaning on his dragon-headed cane. The old man's brocade robe with dark patterns swayed gently in the breeze, and the Duke of Zhengguo token at his waist glinted coldly in the sunlight, exuding majesty. Then General Shen Long said to Shen Lion, "Zyro Lion, now that you have absorbed your first spirit ring." General Shen Long's voice carried an unquestionable steadiness as he continued, "Now, are you planning to go to the Sun Moon Royal Elementary Academy to study, or stay at home where I can teach you to cultivate your spirit? As for some spirit knowledge, you can self-study or come ask me or your parents." Shen Lion was slightly taken aback, his hand tightening instinctively on the long blade. Having arrived through transmigration, he had never had any expectations for the academy life in this world. Thinking about having to coexist with a group of children whose minds were not yet mature, a hint of resistance rose in his heart. Moreover, the super Douluo standing before him, who stood at the peak of the continent, was his greatest reliance. "Grandfather, I will just stay at home," Shen Lion said with a firm gaze, continuing. "Having a super Douluo like you teach me is definitely much better than the academy teachers." Shen Lion bowed slightly, his words full of sincerity, and then continued. "With your attainments, grandfather, and the resources of the Shen Mansion, the spirit knowledge I want to learn can be easily obtained. There is really no need to go to the academy." General Shen Long stroked his beard and laughed, his eyes full of appreciation. "It is fine if you don't want to go. Actually, I don't want you to go either. Can they teach as well as I can?" The old man's tone carried a hint of pride, and then he said to Shen Lion, "If it weren't for the fact that His Majesty, your maternal grandfather Zhu Tiangxiang, wanted you to go yesterday, I wouldn't have come to ask you. Now that you've said you don't want to go, I can consider it a report to His Majesty." "Grandfather, is it maternal grandfather who wants me to go to the academy?" Shen Lion's heart stirred as he asked. General Shen Long nodded, his expression becoming serious. "The main reason His Majesty wants you to go to the academy is because your cousin, the Crown Prince's son, is also in the academy." General Shen Long sighed lightly and then said to Shen Lion, "His Majesty learned of your talent and wanted you to join the academy to study and build a good relationship with him. The current situation in the imperial court is delicate. His Majesty hopes that you royal descendants can support each other." Shen Lion frowned slightly, feeling even more resistant. In his view, this kind of social interaction with political motives was too utilitarian. He longed to focus on his own cultivation and grow stronger step by step. "Grandfather, my mind is made up." He straightened his back, his eyes firm. General Shen Long looked at his grandson with gratification and reached out to pat his shoulder. "Rest assured, Zyro Lion, if you don't want to go, I will go and tell His Majesty. I believe your maternal grandfather will not force you to go either." The old man turned to look toward the distant imperial palace, his gaze deep, and continued. "The path of cultivation should be followed according to one's own heart. With me here, no one can force you to do things you don't like." Shen Lion looked at his grandfather's back, and a warm current welled up in his heart. At this moment, he was even more determined to cultivate at home, and he secretly swore that under his grandfather's guidance, he would definitely carve out his own world. Just as Shen Lion was preparing to leave and return to his room, turning to walk away, his robe brushing against the bluestone bricks of the martial arts arena, he was called back by General Shen Long's aged yet powerful voice. "Oh, that's right, Zyro Lion." General Shen Long rubbed the token at his waist, his gaze cast toward the eagle circling in the sky, and then continued to say to Shen Lion, "His Majesty asked me to bring you along the next time I enter the imperial palace. Your maternal grandfather said that he hasn't seen you since your spirit awakening, so he wants to see you." There was a hint of helplessness in the old man's words, but it could not hide his emphasis on royal bloodline kinship. Shen Lion lowered his eyes and nodded, his black robe hem swaying slightly with the movement. The soul of the transmigration traveler had been silent in this young body for a long time. Shen Lion also missed that imperial maternal grandfather whom he hadn't seen for a long time, because ever since Shen Lion had consciousness, he had always been very good to him. When General Shen Long's words fell, a fallen ginkgo leaf from the martial arts arena happened to land on his shoulder, like some kind of silent urge. "Grandson has noted it." He cupped his hands in salute, and when he turned around, he caught a glimpse of General Shen Long's gaze fixed on his back, like the warm sun in winter, which actually made his steps pause slightly. Returning to his sleeping quarters, the ambergris in the gilded incense burner rose in curls. Shen Lion took off his training clothes soaked in sweat, and the bronze mirror reflected the young man's lean yet powerful body, the spirit imprint on his palm faintly burning. When he sat cross-legged on the cloud-patterned cushion and circulated his spirit power, the moonlight outside the window just happened to climb onto the carved window lattice, plating his whole body with a silver edge. 3 days quietly passed, and the trajectory of his spirit power circulating in his meridians became increasingly smooth, until the 70-second cycle of cultivation ended, and the clear chime of the morning bell came from the direction of the martial arts arena. Shen Lion grabbed his blade, wanting to leave, but saw General Shen Long standing with his hands behind his back at the end of the long corridor, the golden threads on his python robe, embroidered with a heaven-swallowing python pattern, glinting with cold light in the morning sun. Then General Shen Long said to Shen Lion, "Zyro Lion, come with me to the Imperial Palace today. It just so happens that I am going to the Imperial Palace today." Behind the old man, 8 golden-armored guards held gilded long halberds, standing as solemn as statues, their breathing so light it was almost inaudible. Shen Lion sheathed his long blade into the black iron scabbard, the Kai dragon pattern on the hilt pressing painfully into his palm. Then Shen Lion replied, "Okay, grandfather, let's set off." The vermilion-painted gate of the Shen mansion slowly opened, and the carved carriage pulled by 12 snow-maned horses had been waiting for a long time. The inner walls of the carriage were inlaid with night-luminescent pearls, their soft light reflecting the gold thread embroidery on the velvet cushions. General Shen Long lifted the shark silk curtain, signaling for Shen Lion to go first. When he sat down afterward, the hem of his python robe swept across Shen Lion's boots, bringing with it a faint trace of ambergris. The wheels rolled over the bluestone road, making a dull rumbling sound. Shen Lion looked through the gap in the carriage window. The towering city walls of the imperial city rushed toward him like a giant beast, the black iron arrows on the arrow tower glinting with cold light in the sunlight. As the carriage drove into the vermilion bird gate, the ridged beasts on the glazed tiles seemed to come alive as they looked down at him, while the wind chimes on the eaves of the distant golden throne hall made a delicate sound with the breeze, like some kind of ancient prophecy. Chapter 5: Crimson Flame, Sparrow Spirit, and Spirit Bone. The carriage stopped slowly in front of the Taiji Hall. Shen Lion followed General Shen Long off the carriage. The ground, paved with gold bricks, was so polished it could reflect a person's image, with silver threads inlaid in every seam between the bricks. The palace walls towered into the clouds. The glazed tiles on the eaves shimmered with 7-colored halos under the sunlight, and the bronze wind chimes hanging under the eaves tinkled, their sound clear and lingering, as if recounting the ancient history of the imperial palace. Shen Lion followed General Shen Long as they walked through the palace. The gold bricks underfoot were cold and smooth. Every step felt as if he were treading upon the rings of history. The palaces on both sides featured flying eaves and bracket sets, with carved beams and painted rafters, everywhere displaying the majesty and luxury of the royal family. Passing by the imperial garden, Shen Lion caught a glimpse of colorful koi swimming leisurely in the clear water. Rare flowers and exotic herbs competed for beauty on the banks, and the air was filled with a faint floral fragrance. Soon they arrived in front of a magnificent palace. Shen Lion recognized this place. It was the imperial study where his grandfather, Zhu Tianxiang, handled government affairs daily. The guards in front of the palace wore golden armor, held long spears, and had solemn expressions, appearing like two statues. Upon seeing General Shen Long, they immediately bowed in salute, their movements uniform, and then said, "Greetings, Duke of Shengguo." The voice was loud and clear, echoing in front of the empty palace. With a loud creak, the heavy palace doors slowly opened, and Shen Lion followed General Shen Long into the hall. The light inside the hall was soft, sandalwood incense curled in the air, and the atmosphere was filled with a solemn and majestic aura. On the dragon throne directly above sat an old man dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe. He was the emperor of the Sun-Moon Empire, Shen Lion's grandfather, Su Tianxiang. Su Tianxiang had already heard the commotion and was looking at them with a smile. His face was majestic yet kind, his eyes revealing wisdom and composure. Although his temples were frosted with age, he remained vigorous. Seeing Shen Lion, a flash of joy crossed his eyes, and then he said to Shen Lion, "Zyro Lion, come here quickly and let grandfather have a look at you." Shen Lion stepped forward, bowed respectfully, and called out, "Grandfather." Su Tianxiang laughed heartily, his voice bright and clear as he said, "Zyro Lion, ever since your spirit awakening, you haven't come to see grandfather with your mother. Do you really not want to see grandfather that much?" Su Tianxiang's tone held a hint of teasing, but his eyes were full of affection. Shen Lion quickly replied, "How could that be, grandfather? After my spirit awakening, when I discovered I had innate full spirit power, I stayed home to prepare for absorbing my spirit ring, which is why I didn't come to the palace with mother to see you." Su Tianxiang nodded, his eyes full of gratification, and continued, "That's true, our Zyro Lion has twin spirits and innate full spirit power. You will definitely be the pillar of our Sun-Moon Empire in the future." Su Tianxiang paused, as if remembering something, and said to Shen Lion again, "By the way, Zyro Lion, a few days ago someone offered a tribute of a crimson flame sparrow spirit that is over 1,700 years old. This spirit beast carries the ancient vermilion bird bloodline. When you reach rank 30, come to the palace and let it be your third spirit ring." General Shen Long, listening from the side, was also very happy to hear Zhu Tianxiang's words. He knew the rarity and power of the crimson flame sparrow spirit. The power of this 700-year-old crimson flame sparrow spirit could even rival some ordinary 10,000-year spirit beasts. With such a spirit ring's enhancement, Shen Lion's strength would surely increase greatly. Shen Lion was also very pleasantly surprised. He naturally knew the value of the crimson flame sparrow spirit. He quickly said to Zhu Tiangxiang, "Then grandson thanks grandfather in advance, but I don't necessarily need to wait for my third spirit ring to absorb it. My second spirit ring will do." As he spoke, Shen Lion revealed his spirit ring. A flash of light appeared on Shen Lion, and a spirit ring rose from his feet. It was yellow with a hint of purple, emitting a faint halo. "Grandfather, look, my first spirit ring is already 800 years old, so the Crimson Flame Sparrow spirit is just right as my second spirit ring." When Zhu Tiangxiang saw Shen Lion's spirit ring, he was stunned at first, and then his eyes were filled with shock. He had never heard of anyone being able to absorb a spirit ring far exceeding their own rank. "Zyro Lion, how did you do this?" he asked eagerly. Shen Lion did not hide anything, and told Zhu Tiangxiang about his discovery that eating whale gel could improve his physique, thereby allowing him to absorb higher-tier spirit rings. He felt that Zhu Tiangxiang had always treated him well since he was young, and the matter of whale gel improving cultivation would be discovered sooner or later. Rather than hiding it, it was better to be honest. After hearing this, Zhu Tiangxiang's face was filled with shock. He looked at General Shen Long in disbelief. General Shen Long nodded at him, indicating that what Shen Lion said was true. Zhu Tiangxiang finally came back to his senses and said excitedly to Shen Lion, "Zyro Lion, you have truly given grandfather a huge surprise." A gleam of excitement flickered in Zhu Tiangxiang's eyes, as if he saw the future hope of the Sun Moon Empire. The hall was silent for a moment, with only the faint sound of sandalwood incense burning. Zhu Tiangxiang looked at Shen Lion, his eyes filled with anticipation and gratification. Zhu Tiangxiang tapped his fingertips lightly on the purple sandalwood desk, and the memorial under the gilded paperweight rustled. He looked at the storage soul guidance device vaguely visible at Shen Lion's waist, a hint of a smile flashing in his eyes. "Zyro Lion, you have rendered a great service to our Sun Moon Empire." As his dragon robe cuff slipped down, it revealed the red-gold double dragon bracelet wrapped around his wrist, which was the symbol of the direct royal bloodline. "In a moment, grandfather will give you a gift that is sure to be to your liking." After hearing this, Shen Lion also cupped his hands and smiled. "Then thank you, grandfather." Before the words had faded, General Shen Long had already spread a yellowed parchment map on the desk. The two began to discuss in low voices the deployment plan for the Spirit Beast Forest, the smoke from the dragon saliva incense winding into ethereal rivers on the map. Amidst the dripping sound of the palace water clock, Shen Lion looked around the imperial study out of boredom. On the bookshelf on the east side, spirit illustrated guides were neatly arranged. The book on the top shelf with a gold-stamped cover, 10,000 Beast Spirit Bone Manual, had severely worn edges, clearly having been frequently read. On the west wall hung the map of the Sun Moon Empire's territory. The mineral deposit points marked with pearls glimmered under the candlelight, and one pearl the size of a pigeon egg was directly facing his seat. When the copper water clock indicator passed the 5th mark, General Shen Long finally slammed his cinnabar brush onto the desk. Zhu Tiangxiang stood up, rubbing his temples, his dragon boots making a crisp sound as they stepped on the gold bricks. "Zyro Lion, it was agreed that I would give you a gift." He clapped his hands, and two palace maids with lowered heads walked out from behind the gilded screen, holding trays covered with black silk cloth, the edges embroidered with delicate purple gold vine patterns. "Open it and see," Zhu Tiangxiang's voice held a hint of anticipation. The moment Shen Lion reached out and lifted the silk cloth, the spirit bone on the tray suddenly erupted with a piercing silver light. It was a 30,000-year storm devil wolf right leg bone, densely covered with spiderweb-like cyan patterns, and a cold wind howled from where his fingertips touched it. "If you cannot use it, just keep it to play with." Shen Lion put the spirit bone into his storage ring. Then, when he raised his eyes, he happened to meet Zhu Tiangxiang's inquisitive gaze and smiled calmly. "Grandson thanks grandfather for the reward." But inwardly, he calculated, although the wind-type acceleration skill of this spirit bone is good, for him, who possesses twin spirits, it is indeed not as good as reserving the position for a higher-tier spirit bone. Ha ha ha, we are all family. Forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to infinite novel audiobooks. Chapter 6, 7 years old, breakthrough to level 20. Zhu Tiangxiang suddenly clapped his hands and laughed. The purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon embroidery on his dragon robe seemed to come alive in the candlelight, and the rubies embedded in the dragon's eyes glowed faintly. Right, there is one more major matter. Su Tiangxiang walked behind the bookshelf and pressed a carved blue brick. The wall opened with a boom, revealing a golden jade slip floating in a hidden compartment. Our royal family's inherited spirit, the purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul, has a dedicated place of heritage. The jade slip felt slightly warm to the touch. Shen Lion could feel the ancient dragon might flowing within it. Su Tiangxiang pointed at the coiled dragon pattern on the jade slip, his tone solemn. Every royal descendant who awakens the purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul must go to the place of heritage after reaching level 30 to see if they are fortunate enough to obtain the legacy. His fingertips brushed across Shen Lion's forehead, where the markings of his spirit imprint faintly emerged, and then he said to Shen Lion, "You have also awakened the purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul. When the time comes, come to the palace to find me, and grandfather will take you there personally." Then Shen Lion left with General Shen Long. When they left the imperial study, twilight had already spread over the palace walls. As Shen Lion stepped out of the palace gate with General Shen Long, the copper bells on the eaves were stirred by the draft, emitting a clear, resonant sound. The carriage rolled over the frozen stone path. The palace lanterns passing by outside the carriage window had not yet been extinguished, and the crimson halo filtered through the silk curtains, casting flickering light and shadows on Shen Lion's knees. Shen Lion subconsciously touched the storage ring at his waist. That piece of 30,000-year spirit bone lay dormant inside, occasionally emitting a faint whistling sound like the wind. In the year after returning to the mansion, the bluestone bricks of the martial arts arena were carved with countless fine marks by Shen Lion's saber kai. Every dawn, when the first ray of morning light swept over the glazed tiles of the Zhengguo Duke mansion, Shen Lion stood on the training ground holding his black iron blade. His blade momentum was synchronized with his breathing, and he had practiced the Shen family's dragon-slaying blade technique until he knew it by heart. The afternoon sparring sessions were the most dangerous because General Shen Long had specifically selected 3 spirit grandmasters from the guard battalion to take turns sparring with Shen Lion using different elemental spirits. Once, an earth element spirit master's gravity domain even cracked the ground of the martial arts arena. When the night was deep and quiet, Shen Lion's bedroom would always glow with the soft light of spirit power. Shen Lion sat cross-legged on a cloud-patterned cushion, letting the warm current from the whale glue seep into his limbs and bones. The faint crackling sound of his bones growing was exceptionally clear in the silence. The pile of spirit classics on his desk had long since been worn at the edges. In the chapter on the Crimson Flame Sparrow Spirit within, A Study of Ancient Spirit Beast Bloodlines, he had used a vermilion brush to draw 3 emphasis lines under the 4 characters, Vermilion Bird Remnant Soul. On his 7th birthday, before the morning mist had dissipated, the spirit power within Shen Lion's body suddenly broke through the bottleneck. When Shen Lion opened his eyes, the cold plum blossoms outside the window were rustling and falling. Pushing open the door, he saw Zhu Ningxin standing under the corridor holding a jade box. Inside the box was a birthday cake steamed with century-old spirit rice, embedded with 9 bright red goji berries. She had stayed up all night watching the pill furnace to prepare it personally for Shen Lion. "Son, have you broken through to level 20? Zhu Ningxin's voice carried unconcealable excitement, and the pearl hairpins at her temples swayed gently with her movements. Shen Lion noticed the dark circles under his mother's eyes, and it occurred to him that she had stayed awake all night for his breakthrough. Just as he nodded in confirmation, he saw Shen Meng walking over from the moon gate carrying a gilded broadsword. The gluttonous beast pattern on the scabbard shimmered with a cold light in the morning sun. "You brat, once you absorb your spirit ring, you will be the youngest spirit grandmaster in the Sun Moon Empire." General Shen Long turned out from behind the shadow wall, leaning on a dragon-headed cane. The heaven-swallowing python pattern on his brocade robe was dampened by the morning dew, revealing dark patterns of varying shades. "Go to the palace tomorrow and absorb that Crimson Flame Sparrow Spirit's spirit ring." The old man's tone was unquestionable. He struck his cane heavily against the bluestone, startling the grey pigeons resting under the corridor. Zhu Ningxin hurriedly stepped forward to take Shen Lion's arm, her fingertips touching the short blade hidden in his sleeve. That was the birthday gift she had given him last year. The scabbard was engraved with the spirit imprints of both mother and son. The next morning, 2 carved carriages were parked in front of the Zhengguo Duke mansion. When Shen Lion boarded the carriage, he found a purple copper incense burner inside, burning tranquilizing incense that could soothe the ferocity of spirit beasts. Zhu Ningxin was stuffing healing medicinal pill into his storage ring, carefully instructing him on how to use each bottle as she put it in. Not until General Shen long tapped on the carriage door from the outside did she reluctantly put down the jade bottle, though her fingertips accidentally brushed against the cinnabar spell markings on the bottle's body. When the carriage drove into the palace city, the copper nails on the vermilion bird gate flashed with red light in the sunlight. Shen Lion lifted the carriage curtain and looked out, seeing the plum trees in the imperial garden covered in crows. It was a dense black mass, like someone had splattered ink on white rice paper. The sound of weapons clashing came from the distant martial arts arena. He knew that was his cousin training with the guards. When the gilded beast-head door knocker emitted a clear sound in Zhu Ningxin's palm, the bronze crane incense burner in the imperial study was exhaling its last wisp of dragon saliva incense. Shen Lion lowered his eyes to stare at the emerald armor his mother was wearing. Zhu Ningxin had once told Shen Lion that it was armor made of phoenix feather jade, personally bestowed by Zhu Tiangxiang. Then there was the storage bracelet on Zhu Ningxin's wrist, which was swaying gently with her knocking motion, causing the cloud dragon relief on the door panel to flicker in and out of the light. Ningxin, what brings you here to find father today with Zyro Lion? The moment Zhu Tiangxiang put down his vermilion brush, his dragon robe's sleeve swept across the pile of military reports on the desk. The wax seal on the urgent letter from the evil spirit forest on top had not yet dried. Shen Lion noticed that his grandfather, the emperor, had an extra ink jade ring on the ring finger of his left hand. Within the engraved patterns of the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon on the ring's face, there seemed to be a faint, elusive trace of blood color. Father, we came to find you because yesterday Zyro Lion's spirit power broke through to level 20, and we have come to absorb that Crimson Flame Sparrow Spirit ring. Before Zhu Ningxin had even finished speaking, Shen Lion felt the air in the imperial study suddenly stagnate. The gilded chiming clock on the desk struck exactly at the 3rd quarter of the Chen hour. Each chime felt like it was striking his spirit core, causing his spirit imprint to heat up slightly. A 7-year-old spirit grandmaster. Zhu Tiangxiang stood up abruptly, his dragon boots creaking against the gold brick floor. As he rounded the desk, anxious to reach Shen Lion's side, the 12-chapter patterned jade belt at his waist hooked onto a scroll at the corner of the table. The map of the Sun Moon Mountains and rivers unfurled with a rustle, revealing the outline of the evil spirit forest inlaid with pearls. You have truly brought honor to me. The emperor's laughter shook the glazed lamps on the beams, causing the light and shadows to flicker across Shen Lion's face. Then Zhu Tiangxiang ordered someone to take the Crimson Flame Sparrow Spirit to the martial arts arena. As his voice fell, Shen Lion heard the sound of clothes fluttering in the wind from the darkness. 3 shadow guards in black dropped from the rafters, not even stirring the dust on the floor tiles when they landed. Then Shen Lion and Zhu Ningxin followed Zhu Tiangxiang toward the martial arts arena. On the covered walkway leading to the martial arts arena, Zhu Tiangxiang suddenly stopped. He pointed to the winter plum blossoms blooming outside the corridor and smiled at Shen Lion. When your mother was a child, she loved to use plum petals to concoct spirit-guiding agents. As he spoke, he reached out to break off a branch and handed it to Zhu Ningxin, who was following behind. Shen Lion saw a smile appear on his mother's face as she took the flower branch. Chapter 7: Absorbing the Crimson Flame Sparrow Spirit Ring. Shen Lion followed Zhu Tiangxiang and Zhu Ningxin into this vast area paved with bluestone. The bronze war drums on the side of the arena were covered with a thin layer of frost, and several black war banners of the Sun Moon Empire snapped in the wind, the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon totem on the banners seeming as if it would break through the air at any moment. In the center of the martial arts arena, a youth dressed in moon-white training attire was practicing spear techniques with a long spear in hand, the tip of the spear shattering the falling snowflakes in the air and splashing up fine ice crystals. Hearing footsteps, the youth suddenly retracted his spear and turned around, the Sun Martial Soul token hanging at his waist, swaying slightly with the movement, refracting a dazzling light. It was none other than Shen Lion's cousin, Zhu Chengai. His black hair was tied in a jade crown, and his sword-like eyebrows and star-like eyes exuded the nobility of a royal descendant, though his face was currently covered in a light sheen of sweat from martial practice. "Grandfather, aunt." Su Chengai's eyes lit up, and he hurried forward to greet them, planting his long spear onto the ground with a dull thud. He bowed respectfully to Zhu Tiangxiang and Zhu Ningxin, but his gaze curiously sized up Shen Lion standing to the side. Su Tiangxiang nodded slightly, the hem of his dragon robe sweeping across the cold ground. Zhu Ningxin smiled gently and raised her hand to tidy the hair ornament at her temple. "Cousin, long time no see." Su Chengai smiled and waved at Shen Lion, his voice hearty, then continued. "The last time I saw you, we were still riding horses and playing together." Shen Lion shook his head helplessly, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Cousin, there's no helping it. I have to cultivate my spirit power, so I can't spend as much time playing as before. Ever since my spirit awakening, every day is either practicing the blade or studying spirit knowledge, and even my rest time has decreased." Hearing this, a trace of regret flashed in Zhu Chengai's eyes, and he reached out to pat Shen Lion on the shoulder. "Cousin, why don't you come to the Sun Moon Royal Elementary Academy? We could play and cultivate together. There are many interesting courses in the academy, and many formidable teachers. It's definitely more fun than being at home." Shen Lion was just about to refuse, but Zhu Tiangxiang spoke first. The Emperor Grandfather's expression was serious, his dragon eyes slightly narrowed, and his tone carried a hint of exasperation. "You brat, you only know how to play. Zyro Lion is 2 years younger than you and has already reached a breakthrough to level 20, while you are already 9 years old and still at level 19. Look at your cousin, then look at yourself. Why aren't you focusing on cultivating?" Su Chengai looked as if he had been struck by lightning, his eyes widening, and the knuckles of his fingers gripping the long spear turned white. He opened his mouth but could not speak, his mind a complete blank. In his understanding, he possessed the Sun Martial Soul, innate spirit power of level 9, and reaching level 19 at 9 years old already made him a standout among his peers, with even the teachers at the academy full of praise for him. But now, his cousin, who was 2 years younger than him, had actually reached level 21st, which caused stormy waves to rise in his heart. Is the gap between innate level 9 spirit power and innate full spirit power really this large? Su Chengai muttered to himself, his eyes filled with disbelief and frustration. After a long while, he finally recovered, and his gaze toward Shen Lion held a bit more admiration. "Cousin, you're truly amazing. I used to think I was quite formidable, but now I finally know what 'there is always someone better' means." After saying this, he turned his head to look at Zhu Tiangxiang, his eyes filled with confusion. "Grandfather, what are you all doing at the martial arts arena? You didn't come all this way just to tell me that my cousin achieved a breakthrough to level 20, did you?" Su Tiangxiang glared at him indignantly and flicked his sleeve, saying, "Do you think we are that idle? We came to the martial arts arena because your cousin needs to absorb his second spirit ring here. It is that crimson flame sparrow spirit with the ancient vermilion bird bloodline. Watch carefully in a moment and learn from your cousin how to absorb a spirit ring that exceeds the standard age limit." Su Chengai suddenly realized, nodding heavily, his gaze subconsciously turning toward the massive iron cage in the corner of the martial arts arena that was bound by heavy chains. In the cage, the crimson flame sparrow spirit was flapping its wings uneasily, crimson flames surging around its body, twisting the surrounding air into eerie ripples. He was suddenly filled with anticipation and nervousness, wondering what kind of shocking scene it would be when his cousin absorbed this powerful spirit ring. The air in the martial arts arena suddenly became scorching hot. Zhu Tiangxiang raised his hand to signal, and the spirit emperor guard dressed in black armor stepped forward. The 6 spirit rings at his waist lit up in succession, and amidst the interwoven light of ghostly green and deep blue, a giant hammer condensed from spirit power took shape with a boom. The crimson flame sparrow spirit sensed the crisis and let out a sharp cry. The flames in the cage surged violently, and the iron chains were burned red-hot, yet they still firmly locked down this ancient bloodline spirit beast. Boom! The giant hammer, carrying an aura capable of splitting mountains and cracking rocks, smashed toward the iron cage. Amidst the scattering sparks, the right wing of the crimson flame sparrow spirit was snapped off by the sheer force. It stumbled and fell to the ground, its crimson flames dimming, and the feathers on its wings fell off in large patches, revealing charred wounds. Shen Lion saw the tears in its eyes. That drop of tear mixed with blood fell to the ground, instantly sending up a wisp of white smoke. The guard pulled the chains, and the crimson flame sparrow spirit was dragged out of the cage. It struggled, wanting to spread its wings, but was powerless due to its severe injuries. A winding blood trail was left on the bluestone bricks as it was dragged, and every drop of blood burned, scorching black marks into the ground. Shen Lion gripped his dagger and walked forward, the chill of the metal forming a sharp contrast with the scorching heat on the spirit beast. The crimson flame sparrow spirit looked up at him, its eyes filled with both fear and a trace of resignation. Shen Lion took a deep breath, and without the slightest hesitation, accurately stabbed his dagger into its right eye. Warm blood gushed out, splashing onto his clothes and making a sizzling sound of burning. The spirit beast's final mournful cry echoed throughout the martial arts arena, the flames gradually extinguished, leaving only a corpse emitting wisps of smoke. In an instant, a purple spirit ring rose from the corpse and hovered in the air. The pressure it emitted caused everyone present to hold their breath, and Zhu Chengai's eyes widened as he involuntarily took half a step back. Shen Lion quickly sat cross-legged on the ground and circulated his spirit power to draw in the spirit ring. The purple halo enveloped him, and waves of heat rushed toward his face, as if he were standing in a volcanic crater. The absorption process was far more difficult than imagined. The fire attribute spirit power of the crimson flame sparrow spirit was like a surging tide, rampaging through Shen Lion's meridians. Shen Lion gritted his teeth, the veins on his forehead bulging, while he simultaneously circulated his spirit power, attempting to tame this force. The dragon roar of the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon and the cry of the vermilion bird's remnant soul collided fiercely in his sea of consciousness, and countless illusions composed of flames appeared before his eyes. Zhu Chengai stared at his cousin without blinking, his heart filled with both admiration and a touch of unwillingness. Although he had also consumed whale glue to improve his physique, he also knew that he could not, like his cousin, absorb a spirit ring of such high quality, and one that was 1700 years old at that. Seeing his cousin absorb this spirit ring with his own eyes at this moment, he still felt shocked. He gripped his long spear and secretly vowed to cultivate even harder, so as not to be left far behind by Shen Lion. 3 hours passed, and the cold wind of the martial arts arena could not disperse the scorching heat in the air. Shen Lion was drenched, sweat and blood mixing together, soaking a patch of the ground. Finally, the purple spirit ring slowly merged into his body, and a brilliant radiance burst forth from within him. Su Ningxin covered her mouth, her eyes full of worry and heartache. Zhu Tianxiang stroked his beard and nodded with satisfaction. The youngest spirit grandmaster of the Sun Moon Empire was born. Chapter 8: External Spirit Bone. Just when Zhu Ningxin and Zhu Tianxiang thought Shen Lion had finished absorbing the spirit ring and was about to wake up, the cold wind of the martial arts arena swept across Shen Lion's calm face. Just as Zhu Ningxin was about to step forward to drape a cloak over her son, a piercing, tearing scream suddenly shattered the sky. Shen Lion's body, curled up on the ground, twitched violently. His fingers dug deep into the bluestone slabs, and the blood seeping from his nail beds was instantly vaporized into white mist. Zyro Lion. Su Ningxin stumbled forward, only to be held back by Zhu Tianxiang's iron vice-like arm. The old emperor's dragon robe fluttered without wind, and ripples of shock appeared in his eyes. He saw the crimson energy binding around Shen Lion, writhing like a living thing, shredding his robes inch by inch. That energy continuously seeped into his skin, condensing into strange protrusions on his back, as if some giant beast were about to break out of its cocoon. Zhu Chengai's hand gripping his spear trembled slightly, and the tip of the spear unconsciously scraped sparks against the ground. He had never seen such a terrifying scene. His cousin Shen Lion looked like a sacrificial offering being devoured by flames, and his painfully twisted face reminded him of the legendary phoenix reborn from the fire. What is going on?" His voice trembled, but no one answered. Shen Lion's screams gradually deepened, replaced by the crisp sound of bones cracking. Zhu Tianxiang's pupils constricted, and an irrepressible ecstasy surged in his heart, for he recognized that Shen Lion's current state was clearly a sign of an external spirit bone. This kind of once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, rarely seen in the Sun-Moon continent for a century, had actually fallen upon his grandson. Su Tiangxiang gazed at the crimson bone, joints constantly growing from Shen Lion's back. Those metallic-clustered structures were extending at a speed visible to the naked eye, eventually forming a pair of flaming wings, nearly a zhang long. The moment the wings spread, the snow on the martial arts arena instantly vaporized. Shen Lion slowly opened his eyes, with 2 clusters of crimson flames dancing within them. With a thought from Shen Lion, the wings flapped gently, and the resulting airflow knocked the guards within 3 zhang to the ground. Su Cheng'ai looked up at the figure in the sky, his spear clattering to the ground. He had never craved power so much. Watching Shen Lion carve a beautiful arc while steering his wings, jealousy and longing surged in his heart. He secretly vowed that in the future, he would tread through every spirit beast forest to find a spirit beast with flight capabilities. Even if he had to risk everything, he would possess his own wings. Zyro Lion, that's enough, you're still naked. Su Ningxin shouted, crying and laughing at the same time. Shen Lion finally woke up from his trance. Looking down at his naked body, his earlobes turned bright red instantly. He scrambled toward the bushes, his wings leaving trails of fire behind him. A moment later, Shen Lion walked out, dressed in new robes. Although he still looked a bit embarrassed, the light in his eyes was brighter than ever. Su Tiangxiang stepped forward and patted his grandson's shoulder heavily, his dragon eyes full of pride. Good, good, this external spirit bone, truly only a heaven-defying genius could possess it. The wind in the martial arts arena ruffled the hem of Shen Lion's new dark-colored robes, and the dragon-patterned jade belt at Su Tiangxiang's waist swayed gently. The old emperor rubbed the black jade ring on his thumb, his dragon eyes burning. Zyro Lion, what is your spirit power level now? As the words fell, Shen Lion lowered his eyes to sense the spirit power within his body. The fire attribute energy of the crimson flame sparrow spirit surged through his meridians like a river. Shen Lion flicked his finger, and a wisp of crimson flame leaped from his fingertip, condensing without dissipating in the cold wind. After absorbing the spirit ring and the external spirit bone, my current spirit power is level 23. Good, a fine level 23. Su Tiangxiang clapped his hands and laughed, causing the bronze war drums at the edge of the martial arts arena to hum. Su Tiangxiang pointed to the bluestone target wall in the distance, and the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon embroidery on his dragon robe seemed to come alive. Quick, let your grandfather see your spirit ability. Shen Lion flipped his wrist, and the dragon-slaying blade condensed in his palm. The blade of the dragon-slaying blade spat out cold light. When the first yellow-purple spirit ring rose from under his feet, the stone lion on the target wall suddenly oozed magma like wax. Grandfather, watch closely. Shen Lion lowered his waist and stood firmly, his blade movement drawing a semicircle, and then he shouted. Second spirit ability, Crimson Sparrow Peerless. The moment the blade light swept past, the temperature of the martial arts arena soared. Su Cheng'ai watched as the dragon-slaying blade ignited with glaze-like flames. Shen Lion's blade speed was so fast that only afterimages remained, and there was even a sonic boom in the air. Even more astonishing was that the unleashed saber kai condensed into a phantom of a vermilion bird with wings spread. The firebird shrieked and crashed into the target wall, burning a charred mark 3 feet in diameter on the stone surface, and continuous cracking sounds came from inside the wall. Is this a spirit ability with a spirit beast mimicry? Su Tiangxiang stood up abruptly, his dragon boots cracking the gold bricks. The shadow guards behind him pressed their hands on their sword hilts simultaneously, but they saw that what seeped out of the cracks in the target wall was not gravel, but burning liquid rock. Shen Lion smiled slightly, and a blood-colored halo suddenly burst from his back. 2 pairs of crimson wings spread out layer by layer. The outermost primary wings shone with a metallic luster, and the roots of the feathers were covered with flame patterns resembling runes. External spirit bone ability, Crimson Flame Divine Wings. Shen Lion flapped his wings and soared into the sky, the trajectory of his wings leaving trails of burning light. Su Cheng'ai discovered with horror that the gilded decorations on his spear were melting. As Shen Lion's thoughts shifted, tens of thousands of flaming feather blades shot out from under his wings. Those feather blades looked light and thin, but when they landed, they blasted out craters as deep as a bowl, and the bluestone slabs of the martial arts arena bubbled as if splashed with magma. Su Ningxin instinctively pulled her son into her arms, but felt the temperature coming from the wings on Shen Lion's back. It wasn't the heat of burning, but a warmth like a beating heart. This external spirit bone's spirit ability. Su Tiangxiang reached out, trembling, but was blocked by an invisible wall of fire when he reached 3 inches from the wings, and then he continued. To be able to perform flight and area attacks simultaneously, Zyro Lion, do you know what this means? The old emperor pointed to the burning target range in the distance, where those flaming feather blades had actually formed a complete vermilion bird totem on the ground, and continued to say to Shen Lion. Since recorded history, the entire Sun-Moon continent has never seen such a perfect external spirit bone. Zyro Lion, you might even be able to touch that legendary realm. Shen Lion hovered in midair, feeling the perfect fit between his wings and his spirit power. He looked down at the center of the martial arts arena, where Zhu Chengai was poking the molten holes in the ground with his spear, and the tip of the spear was instantly melted. Shen Lion naturally knew what realm Zhu Tiangxiang was talking about. It was becoming a god. Then Shen Lion said to Zhu Tiangxiang, "Grandfather, don't worry, I will strive toward that." Hearing Shen Lion's words, Zhu Tiangxiang also laughed ha ha ha, and then said to Shen Lion, "Grandfather believes in you. By then, our royal family will be a royal family that has produced a god." After saying this, Zhu Tiangxiang also patted Shen Lion's head again. Chapter 9, Place of Heritage. The setting sun's afterglow plated the palace's glazed tiles in a layer of golden red, while the aroma of grilled fish wafting from the imperial kitchen mingled with the sweet fragrance of osmanthus wine. Shen Lion sat at the lower seat of Zhu Tiangxiang, watching his grandfather personally pick up a piece of fish meat that looked like suet jade for him. The fishtail was adorned with the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon pattern, symbol of the royal family. Su Ningxin would occasionally place peeled shrimp into her son's bowl. The jade nail guards on her fingertips glowed with a gentle luster under the candlelight, reflecting the newly acquired crimson gold double dragon bracelet on Shen Lion's wrist. After the meal, as twilight thickened, the sound of carriage wheels rolling over the bluestone road of the imperial city became exceptionally clear. Shen Lion leaned against the carriage cushions, gazing at the fleeting shadows of palace lanterns outside the window. The vermilion bird wings behind him flickered with the fluctuations of his spirit power, and whenever they brushed against the velvet curtains, they left behind a charred mark. Seeing this, Zhu Ningxin chuckled softly and took out a handkerchief embroidered with twin lotus flowers to gently wipe it. "With these wings, I'm afraid you'll burn through all the screens at home in the future." When the bronze door knocker of the Zhengguo Duke Mansion rang, Shen Meng was already waiting outside the hanging flower gate, holding a wine jar. The moonlight stretched his shadow long, and the 2 characters for celebration on the wine jar in his hand were painted in cinnabar, looking fresh and dripping red. General Shen Long stood before the steps, leaning on a dragon-headed cane. The dragon-slaying blade spirit beneath his python-patterned brocade robe seemed to sense its master's joy. "Quickly, let grandfather see your new spirit ability." General Shen Long's voice carried an unquestionable urgency. When Shen Lion unleashed Vermilion Bird Peerless, the phantom of the vermilion bird formed by the blade light circled the night sky of the martial arts arena 3 times before dissipating, causing the icicles under the eaves to fall with a rustle. Upon hearing the news of the external spirit bone, the wine jar in Shen Meng's hand fell to the ground with a clang. Wine mixed with broken porcelain shimmered in the moonlight, but he was completely oblivious, only patting his son's shoulder forcefully. "Good lad, our Shen family is about to produce an ancestor who can fly." Then for the next 3 years, the martial arts arena of the Zhengguo Duke Mansion witnessed Shen Lion's transformation. Every day at dawn, Shen Lion's blade light would startle the jackdaws roosting on the eaves. The sound of his black iron blade cleaving through the morning mist, intertwined with General Shen Long's gidding shouts and scoldings, composed a unique morning melody. The afternoon combat training became increasingly dangerous. General Shen Long even invited an old comrade from the battlefield, a spirit Douluo skilled in poison-type spirits. Dark green poison mist often shrouded the martial arts arena, making it look like the underworld. At night, Shen Lion would improve his spirit power through meditation, and he would consume whale glue every 3 days. Just when Shen Lion was 10 years old, a torrential rain poured down one day. Shen Lion broke through the 30-level bottleneck in the secret chamber, where he was in seclusion. The surging spirit power rushed through his meridians like a flood, causing the black iron walls surrounding the secret chamber to hum. Upon receiving the news, General Shen Long immediately gathered 300 elites and personally charged into the core area of the evil spirit forest. Returning 3 days later, one could tell from the old man's python-patterned brocade robe that General Shen Long had been through a dusty journey. In the iron cage behind him was a 6,000-year-old flame dragon wolf king. The process of absorbing the spirit ring was not as thrilling. The flame dragon wolf king's spirit ring turned into a crimson gold torrent that surged into his body, creating a violent resonance with the vermilion bird external spirit bone. 2 distinct flames ignited around Shen Lion's body. The purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul actually manifested a phantom in the flames, with dragon claws and bird wings reflecting each other. When the third purple spirit ring stabilized, his spirit power had also reached level 32. The vermilion bird wings behind Shen Lion suddenly surged, and the sparks dripping from the wingtips melted bottomless holes into the floor of the secret chamber. Stepping out of the secret chamber, Shen Lion still had charred marks from the battle on his robes, but the light in his eyes was brighter than ever. Then Shen Lion demonstrated his third spirit ability to his family, Crimson Flame Gale Slash. He executed a 3-hit combo at extreme speed, each strike stronger than the last, with every slash carrying the scorching heat of flames. His figure moved like lightning, carving 3 afterimages in the courtyard. Every swing tore through the air with a shrill whistle, and wherever the blade light passed, the ground was scorched into charred gullies, with heat waves and sparks rising into the air. Some of the Shen Mansion servants watching gasped. A 10-year-old spirit elder was rare in a century on the Douluo Continent, and this powerful third spirit ability further demonstrated his terrifying talent. After demonstrating the spirit ability, Shen Lion didn't bother to rest and ordered someone to hitch the family's fastest carriage, because Shen Lion needed to go to the palace. The carriage wheels rolled over the bluestone road, kicking up dust along the way. Shen Lion gripped the jade pendant gifted by his grandfather Zhu Tianxiang, recalling his previous instruction: "Once you break through to level 30, come to the palace to find me immediately." Deep within the palace, the bronze doors of an unnamed palace hall slowly opened under Shen Lion's palm. Candlelight flickered inside the hall, stretching Zhu Tianxiang's shadow long. The white-haired old man was dressed in a dragon-patterned brocade robe, gazing at the mottled portrait of an ancestor on the wall. The moment the doors closed, the air seemed to solidify, and only the crackling sound of the candle wick was exceptionally clear in the silence. Grandfather Shen Lion cupped his fists in a salute, his voice echoing in the spacious hall. Zhu Tianxiang turned around, his eyes full of gratification, and then said to Shen Lion, "Zyro Lion, I didn't expect you to really step into the spirit elder realm at the age of 10. You are truly the #1 genius of our Sun Moon Empire." Zhu Tianxiang stroked his beard, a smile appearing on his aged face, but it turned serious in an instant as he continued to say to Shen Lion, "However, now is not the time to reminisce. Do you know why I asked you to come at this time?" Shen Lion shook his head, his eyes full of confusion. Zhu Tianxiang paced to the center of the hall, his fingertips brushing against the cold stone pillar, his voice low. "Our Zhu family guards a place of heritage for a god position. This secret is unknown to anyone except the Emperor or those who have awakened the purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul and possess innate spirit power above level 9. Shen Lion's pupils constricted. He knew all too well what a god position legacy meant. It was the supreme realm that all spirit masters on the Douluo Continent pursued throughout their lives. Hundreds of years ago, after your ancestor Su Zhanshan broke through to a level 99 Super Douluo, he embarked on a journey to find a god position. Zhu Tianxiang's voice carried reminiscence as he continued. He traversed the endless star sea, endured countless hardships, and finally, at the edge of the Sun Moon Continent, found that legendary divine palace. However, the old man paused, a trace of regret flashing in his eyes, and continued to say to Shen Lion, "The legacy trial did not favor him. He only obtained the qualification for the third trial. Just as he was disheartened and preparing to leave, a dragon roar came from the depths of the place of heritage. The million-year spirit beast, the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon, appeared." Shen Lion held his breath, imagining the scene of that super ancestor confronting the divine beast. The purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon pitied your ancestors' persistence and revealed the truth. The sun martial soul did not align with the origin of the god position, but it did not wish to see such a prodigy's potential go to waste, so it actually fused its own life essence into your ancestor's body. Since then, the descendants of the Zhu family have awakened the purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul. Shen Lion looked at his grandfather's grave expression, his throat tightening. What happened next? Chapter 10: 9 Trials of Destruction. Hearing Shen Lion's question, Zhu Tiangxiang's aged palm caressed the dragon scale, his knuckles turning slightly white from the force, and then he continued, "Back then, our ancestor moved our family to this place and built a barrier using the majesty of the imperial family. Every brick and stone of this palace is sealed with ancient runes." Zhu Tiangxiang's voice sounded as if it came from the depths of ancient times, and then he continued to say to Shen Lion, "Zyro Lion, you must understand that the path to becoming a god is never a smooth one. When the previous two ancestors stepped into the light curtain, heart-wrenching screams erupted from their bodies, and in the end, they dissipated into specks of starlight in the void realm. Zyro Lion, are you afraid?" Shen Lion's Adam's apple bobbed once, but he still straightened his spine and said to Zhu Tiangxiang, "Grandfather, I am not afraid." Burning in Shen Lion's eyes was a fiery flame, a determination that surpassed his age. The moment Zhu Tiangxiang embedded the dragon scale into the groove, the entire palace shook violently. A roar of gears turning came from beneath the floor tiles, as if a behemoth that had been sleeping for 1,000 years was awakening. The ground cracked with spiderweb-like patterns, from which an eerie blue light seeped out, gradually converging into stairs leading underground. A cold and damp aura rushed toward his face, and Shen Lion keenly captured the eerie, ghostly green flames flickering within the skulls embedded on both sides of the stairs. These are all failures who attempted to break into the place of heritage. Zhu Tiangxiang's voice echoed in the empty tunnel, stirring up bursts of reverberations, and then he continued, "Every 100 years, one flame in the skulls goes out, symbolizing that the power of the god position legacy is fading away." At the end of the tunnel, a light curtain flowed like liquid mercury, its surface shimmering with a 7-colored halo, yet faintly exuding a murderous aura. Then Zhu Tiangxiang said to Shen Lion, "Zyro Lion, this is the place. Use your purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul, and then try to walk through the light curtain. As long as you can enter the light curtain, you will have a chance to obtain the legacy." Shen Lion took a deep breath, and his purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul instantly possessed him. Dark purple scales covered his entire body, huge dragon wings unfolded behind his back, and a heart-palpitating pressure permeated the air. The instant his fingertips touched the light curtain, the entire space suddenly went still. Zhu Tiangxiang's eyes widened as he saw the light curtain twisting like a living creature. Countless golden runes erupted from Shen Lion's fingertips, resonating with the patterns on the light curtain. Boom! With a loud bang, a crack was torn open in the light curtain, and Shen Lion's figure gradually became transparent within the light until he completely disappeared. The old man knelt on the ground, trembling as turbid tears welled up and spilled from his eyes. Ancestors above, the Zhu family has waited for hundreds of years, and finally this day has arrived. Zhu Tiangxiang gazed at the empty light curtain, as if he could see his ancestor Su Zhanshan standing in the clouds, nodding at him with gratification. At this moment, the ground of the entire imperial palace was vibrating slightly, and a huge purple dragon shadow appeared in the sky, signaling to the world the dawn of a new era. Zhu Tiangxiang's body leaned against the stone wall in front of the light curtain, his turbid eyes staring unblinkingly at the flowing 7-colored light. He tremblingly took out an ancient pocket watch from his bosom. The purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon totem, engraved on the cover, had long since become mottled, yet it still exuded majesty. "Ancestors protect him, Zyro Lion must return safely." Zhu Tiangxiang muttered to himself, his voice echoing in the empty tunnel, startling the spiderwebs on the walls into shivering. On the other side, the moment Shen Lion stepped into the place of heritage, he felt a bone-chilling coldness shoot up his spine to the top of his head. When his vision cleared, the scene before him made him gasp. The altar floating in the void realm was built from pitch-black basalt, its surface covered in winding, vein-like golden patterns, with eerie blue arcs of electricity leaping between them from time to time. Behind the altar, a flight of stairs with no visible end led straight to the dome. On both sides of the stairs, eternal cyan flames burned, illuminating the surroundings as if it were purgatory. Shen Lion's gaze finally fixed on the top of the stairs. Coiled there was a behemoth that was fully 100 zhang long, its dark purple scales gleaming with a cold metallic luster, each one the size of a millstone. The giant beast was fast asleep, and every breath it took stirred up howling gales, agitating the fine specks of starlight floating in the air. It really is it, the million-year-old purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon that grandfather spoke of. Shen Lion clenched his fists, his heart beating like a drum. The pressure radiating from the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon was 100 times more terrifying than he had imagined. Forcing down the shock in his heart, Shen Lion stepped toward the center of the altar. The ground groaned under his feet, unable to bear the weight, and those golden patterns seemed to come alive, climbing up along the soles of his boots. The instant his palm pressed against the altar's stone pillar, the cold touch was mixed with a subtle vibration, as if a sleeping beast was hidden inside the pillar. Hum! A piercing hum suddenly exploded, and the purple light on the surface of the stone pillar erupted like a volcanic eruption. Shen Lion was blinded by the glare and could not open his eyes, only feeling a massive force rush straight into his sea of consciousness along his arm. In a trance, he seemed to see countless planets exploding in the universe, feeling the reincarnation of all things from birth to destruction. Congratulations, you have obtained the 9 trials of destruction. A majestic voice exploded in Shen Lion's sea of consciousness, carrying endless vicissitudes and vastness, and then the voice continued, by passing the 9 trials, you will inherit the god position of the god of destruction and control the birth and destruction of the universe. At the same time, a scorching pain flared in the center of Shen Lion's forehead. A purple flame mark slowly emerged, the patterns of the flame twisted like a living creature, making his face look bewitching and charming. He raised his hand to touch the mark. The sensation from his fingertips was both real and illusory, as if this mark had long existed in the depths of his soul. Meanwhile, in the center of the god realm, the eternal lake rippled brilliantly, and the star core sleeping at the bottom of the lake pulsed with a soft light, illuminating the surrounding floating glazed palaces as if they were dreamlike. The god of destruction leaned sideways on a throne cast from obsidian, his deep purple long hair falling like a waterfall, his fingertips unconsciously toying with a dark golden divine rune, when suddenly his whole body shuddered, and a flash of shock crossed his eyes. Little Zai. The goddess of life stopped what she was doing, her emerald-colored skirt sweeping across the starlight-covered floor, the vines twined in her hair blooming with pale golden flowers, and then she continued to say to the god of destruction, "Why is your face so pale?" She lightly raised her jade hand, condensing a trace of life force, wanting to reach out to him. The god of destruction stood up abruptly, the lava pool beneath the throne boiled and surged, and crimson magma splashed onto the dome, congealing into a broken dragon shape, the place of heritage on Douluo Planet. Someone has triggered the 9 trials of destruction. His voice carried uncontrollable trembling, divine runes flowed crazily in his palms, and a huge phantom of world destruction appeared behind him. The goddess of life's emerald eyes suddenly widened, and the life force condensed in her hands turned into fireflies filling the sky. Really, has the successor suitable for your god position finally appeared? She stepped forward, the leaf vein patterns on her dress flickering with a faint light, and then she continued, if they can successfully inherit it, you will be able to break free from the shackles of your god position. Chapter 11, The First Destruction God Trial and Huang Tian. The god of destruction strode to the edge of the lake of eternity, his reflection on the water's surface twisting and deforming with his emotions. Not only that, when he turned around, the corners of his mouth curled into an arc of ecstasy, and he said to the goddess of life, "Once I regain my freedom, I will surely traverse the 3,000 worlds to find the most suitable successor for you." He reached out and grasped at the air, causing the lake to surge with giant waves, and then said, "Or I can send the message to my successor now, letting him keep an eye out for someone compatible with the power of life on the Douluo planet." A faint flush appeared on the goddess of life's cheeks. She tapped the surface of the lake with her fingertip, and scenes of thousands of worlds emerged from the rippling water. If we could truly both cast off the shackles of our god positions. She gazed at the floating barrier of the god realm in the distance, her eyes filled with longing, and continued. I've heard that the seasons cycle in the sunset forest of the Douluo Continent, and in the Stardew Great Forest, one can see the Milky Way descend upon the mortal realm. There are many beautiful sights in other worlds as well. The god of destruction suddenly reached out and grasped her wrist, the power of destruction in his palm colliding with her power of life to create a rainbow. On the day the new god of destruction ascends to the throne, we shall go to the mortal realm and see all the mountains and rivers. His voice was gentle yet firm, startling a flock of gilded phoenixes resting at the top of the god tree. As they flapped their wings, the feathers that fell turned into meteors and plummeted into the lower realm. In the god realm, the dark purple divine patterns circling the god of destruction grew increasingly dazzling. He stared in the direction of the Douluo planet, his eyes flashing with impatient light. I will send my divine sense to the lower realm now. Not only will I set up the destruction god trial for my successor, but I can also have him immediately start looking for a suitable successor for you. As he spoke, the space around the god of destruction rippled, as if it would tear the void realm apart at any moment. The goddess of life nodded gently, her emerald eyes filled with anticipation. The vine flowers in her hair swayed softly, as if seeing him off. In an instant, the god of destruction transformed into a stream of light wrapped in the aura of destruction, piercing through the barrier of the god realm and speeding toward the Douluo planet. Wherever he passed, the stars dimmed and space trembled. At this moment, in the place of heritage, Shen Lion was still immersed in the shock of receiving the destruction god trial. This was one of the 5 great god kings of the god realm. The purple specks of light floating around the altar slowly swirled around him. Suddenly, the air seemed to solidify, and a suffocating pressure descended from the sky. The basalt patterns on the ground erupted with blinding light. A figure slowly emerged from the void realm, purple robes flapping loudly. The tall figure seemed capable of holding up the firmament, and the purple flame mark on his forehead, identical to Shen Lion's, was emitting a mysterious, dim light. Shen Lion's pupils constricted. He suppressed the shock in his heart and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Lord God of Destruction." Although Shen Lion's voice was steady, it could not hide the excitement within. The god of destruction raised his hands slightly, and a gentle force lifted Shen Lion up. He examined the youth before him with great interest, and then said to Shen Lion, "I didn't expect my successor to be a 10-year-old child. However, to be able to reach the spirit elder rank at 10 years old, despite not having a god-bestowed spirit and not having innate full spirit power, can be considered outstanding talent." The god of destruction's voice was deep and majestic, yet it carried a trace of imperceptible appreciation. Shen Lion said humbly, "You flatter me, my lord." The god of destruction said no more. The power of destruction surged around his body, and he lightly tapped Shen Lion's forehead with his fingertip. In an instant, Shen Lion's sea of consciousness seemed to explode, and a roar echoed within it. Destruction God Trial First Trial. Ascend the 999 steps behind the altar using your own power. Completion reward. Increase the age of each spirit ring by 5,000 years, and receive 1 God-bestowed spirit ring. After Shen Lion recovered from the shock in his sea of consciousness, the god of destruction was already holding a green gold leaf, emitting a gentle aura of life. He handed it over and said to Shen Lion, "This is the token of inheritance for the goddess of life's god position. If you encounter a suitable person, deliver it to them. In return, Huang Tian will naturally become your spirit ring." As his voice fell, the god of destruction teleported to the top of the steps and whispered for a moment with the sleeping purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon. Huang Tian's massive body swayed slightly, and its giant dragon head nodded. Only then did the god of destruction disappear into the void realm with satisfaction, leaving behind only a faint, lingering aura of destruction in the air. As Shen Lion was pondering the differences in the god's trial rewards, the earth shook and the mountains swayed. Huang Tian's massive figure had already appeared before him, blocking out the sky and sun. "Kid, what are you dazing off for?" Huang Tian's voice made the surrounding air hum. Shen Lion was startled at first, then mustered his courage and asked, "Senior Huang Tian, why is there no god position affinity bonus in my god's trial rewards?" Huang Tian let out a hearty laugh, shaking stone debris down from the dome, and then said to Shen Lion, "Just call me Huang Tian, no need to call me senior. Now you can say that you are my master." Lord God of Destruction has already given instructions. As long as you are willing, I will offer a sacrifice and accompany you to the God realm. As for that affinity, do you know that the purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul was born for the destruction god position? Why would it need an extra bonus? Shen Lion suddenly realized. That's right, his own purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul was the most suitable spirit for the destruction god position. He wasn't like that little rascal, using that blade of grass to inherit the sea god's position. That was the only situation that would require god position affinity. Then a flash of determination appeared in Shen Lion's eyes, and he said to Huang Tian, "Huang Tian, rest assured, once you offer your sacrifice, the day I become a god, I will definitely let you be reborn and become a divine beast." Shen Lion's oath was resonant and powerful, echoing for a long time in the place of heritage. Huang Tian gazed at the youth, a glimmer of gratification flashing in its giant eyes, as if it saw the infinite possibilities of the future. Huang Tian's giant dragon claw gently scraped the ground, and the basalt altar immediately cracked into spiderweb patterns. Its amber vertical pupils stared at Shen Lion, and the golden light flowing in its eyes was like a burning star. "Kid, when do you plan to have me offer my sacrifice?" The deep voice carried a pressure that shook the soul, yet it also revealed a trace of imperceptible anticipation. Shen Lion looked up at the massive figure that blocked the sky and sun, the images of his two spirits constantly intertwining in his mind. The dragon-slaying blade spirit shimmered with a cold light amidst the fluctuations of spirit power, while the phantom of the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon was intertwined with the aura of destruction. "Huang Tian, your origin power is of the same source as the purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul. If you can become my seventh spirit ring, you will definitely be able to awaken the purest million-year martial soul avatar." Shen Lion clenched his fists, his eyes burning with fervent desire. As if he had already seen the shocking scene of the dark purple giant dragon soaring into the sky. Huang Tian's giant head nodded slightly, its scales rubbing together with the crisp sound of metal striking stone. "You do have some vision. Forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to infinite novel audiobooks." Purple mist rose around its body, and its figure began to shrink continuously, finally turning into a stream of light that entered Shen Lion's forehead, and then it said to Shen Lion, "From today on, I will reside within your spirit. If you have any need, just call me." Shen Lion felt his sea of consciousness tremble violently. The dark purple dragon shadow coiled deep within his spirit, and Huang Tian's voice echoed in the depths of his soul. "What are you surprised about? Your purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul was originally formed from my blood essence." Chapter 12, beginning the first trial of destruction. As the words fell, Shen Lion could clearly feel the power flowing within his spirit, becoming increasingly refined. Every trace of spirit power carried the pressure of an ancient vicious beast, and then Huang Tian continued. "During my stay, I will constantly temper your spirit. When you reach the breakthrough to title Douluo, you might be able to awaken the ancient talent of the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon." Shen Lion trembled with excitement and reached out to touch his brow, as if he could feel Huang Tian's cold scales. "Does this mean that if I encounter danger in the future?" "Rest assured." Huang Tian's voice carried an unquestionable dominance. The dragon shadow in Shen Lion's sea of consciousness suddenly opened its eyes and declared domineeringly, "Even a level 99 Super Douluo would have to think twice before daring to touch you." Before the voice faded, Huang Tian's aura erupted suddenly, causing the entire place of heritage to shake violently, and even the phantom stars on the vaulted ceiling dimmed. A surge of wild joy welled up in Shen Lion's heart. With a million-year spirit beast as his backing, where on the Douluo Continent could he not go? He looked at the 999 steps behind the altar, the fear in his eyes already transformed into burning fighting spirit. "Huang Tian, once I complete the first god's trial, we will sweep across the Douluo Continent together." Then Shen Lion walked toward the exit of the place of heritage, needing to inform his maternal grandfather, parents, and paternal grandfather, as he might spend a great deal of time in the place of heritage from now on. Shen Lion's footsteps echoed in the empty tunnel, and the flickering ghostly green flames on the stone walls stretched his shadow, making it fluctuate in length. Thinking of the shocking news he was about to deliver, The youth's heart beat faster. Stepping out of the light curtain, dim lights greeted his eyes. Shen Lion squinted and immediately caught sight of Zhu Tiangxiang's figure. Zhu Tiangxiang was leaning against the stone wall, his silver hair disheveled in the wind, his bloodshot eyes fixed intently on the tunnel entrance, filled with worry for Shen Lion. Maternal grandfather. Shen Lion hurried forward. Zhu Tiangxiang grabbed Shen Lion's shoulders, his aged fingers trembling slightly. Zyro Lion, how did it go? What kind of god's trial did you receive? Zhu Tiangxiang's voice was hoarse, revealing the exhaustion and anxiety of having not slept all night. Shen Lion wiped the sweat from his forehead, his gaze firm. Maternal grandfather, I won't say anything now. Quickly send someone to bring my parents and paternal grandfather to the palace. This matter must be discussed in person. Then Shen Lion and Zhu Tiangxiang arrived at the Yangtze Hall of the Imperial Palace. Half an hour later, sandalwood incense curled in the Yangtze Hall. General Shen Long's armchair creaked slightly. The white-haired old man rubbed the jade pendant at his waist, his gaze locked on Shen Lion. Shen Meng's fists clenched and unclenched inside his sleeves, his knuckles turning white. Su Ningxin was quietly twisting the corner of her skirt, her eyes filled with worry and anticipation. Zhu Tiangxiang cleared his throat. Zyro Lion, whatever it is, you can say it now, we are all here. Shen Lion took a deep breath, straightened his back, and said to the four of them, Paternal grandfather, maternal grandfather, father, mother, I have received the god's trial of the god of destruction. As long as I complete the 9 trials of destruction, I can achieve ascension and become a god. As he spoke, Shen Lion reached up to lift his bangs, revealing the purple flame mark of destruction on his brow, which glowed brilliantly in the sunlight, and then he continued to say to the four, Look, this is the mark of destruction. The hall fell into dead silence. The teacup in General Shen Long's hand fell to the ground with a clang, and the tea snaked into a river on the blue bricks. Shen Meng stood up abruptly, knocking over the flower stand behind him. Su Ningxin covered her mouth, joy appearing on her face. Good, very good. Zhu Tiangxiang was the first to break the silence, his cloudy old tears sliding down his wrinkles, and then he continued. Our Su family has waited 800 years, and finally, we have reached this day. From now on, the imperial family will also have the protection of a god. General Shen Long also stepped forward tremblingly, his palm brushing over the mark on Shen Lion's brow, and then said, Good child, this is the glory of our Shen family. General Shen Long's voice choked, his aged chest heaving violently. Shen Lion clenched his fists, his gaze sweeping across the faces of his loved ones, and then said again, There is one more thing. The first god's trial is to climb the 999 steps behind the altar. Before completing the trial, I may have to remain in the place of heritage to cultivate in seclusion. Focus on your trial, don't get distracted. Shen Meng said in a rough voice, but he quietly turned his face away to wipe the corner of his eyes. Zhu Tiangxiang and General Shen Long also agreed repeatedly, but only Zhu Ningxin's eyes suddenly turned red, and she stepped forward to hug her son tightly. Zyro Lion, you must take good care of yourself inside. Her voice trembled and her tears soaked Shen Lion's collar. Shen Lion hugged his mother back, his nose stinging. Mother, don't worry, Senior Huang Tian is residing in my spirit. He will protect me if there is danger. If you miss me, I can come out to see you at any time. Shen Lion gently patted his mother's back, catching a glimpse of his father turning his face away to wipe away tears secretly, and a warm current welled up in his heart. Then he said to the people present, When I become a god, I will definitely take you all to the god realm to enjoy blessings. The golden glow of the sunset spilled through the carved lattice windows into Yangtze Hall, cutting warm patches of light onto the blue bricks. The hand with which General Shen Long held his cup trembled slightly, and the amber liquid rippled in the white jade cup. This cup is a toast to the future god of our Shen family and Su family. The four of them looked at each other and smiled, their wrinkles filled with gratification, yet they could not hide Zhu Ningxin's action of quietly wiping away tears. After the meal, the moon was already climbing the willow branches, and Shen Lion bid farewell to his family. Zhu Tiangxiang shoved a jade slip, engraved with a dragon pattern, into his hand, and then said to Shen Lion, Inside are the combat insights of the strong practitioners of the Su family's purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon martial soul throughout the generations. You might find them useful in the place of heritage. Shen Meng shoved a black iron dagger into his son's hand, his rough palm stroking the hilt for a long time, and then said to Shen Lion, "Be careful in everything." Returning to the place of heritage, the 999 steps behind the altar appeared and disappeared in the ghostly light, like a stairway leading to hell. Shen Lion took a deep breath, and the purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul possessed him. Dark purple scales shimmered with a cold gleam in the dim light. When he stepped onto the first step, an invisible pressure struck him suddenly, as if a crushing boulder were pressing on his shoulders, causing his bones to emit a faint groan. Is this the pressure of the destruction divine power? Shen Lion gritted his teeth and moved forward. Every step felt like treading on the tip of a knife. The golden patterns on the surface of the steps lit up, turning into countless tiny runes that burrowed into his body, and a needle-like stinging pain radiated through his mental force in his sea of consciousness. When he climbed to the 30th step, he was already drenched in sweat, his spirit power surging wildly in his meridians, yet he still felt his entire body crying out in exhaustion. "Two!" Shen Lion leaped onto the 99th step, unable to hold on any longer, and fell to one knee, panting heavily. The cyan flames around the steps suddenly surged, turning into hideous, ghostly faces that rushed toward him. The impact on his mental force made his vision go dark. He struggled to gather his spirit power, forming a dragon-shaped barrier in front of him, only then barely resisting this wave of attacks. What an overbearing trial. Chapter 13, completing the first trial, achieving Spirit Emperor. Shen Lion wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, but to his pleasant surprise, under this extreme pressure, the spirit power within his body had become more refined, like iron being forged. He could clearly feel that the crimson light of his third spirit ring seemed to have brightened slightly, and even the phantom of his purple radiance world-extinguishing, dragon martial soul had become more solidified. Huang Tian's voice resounded in his sea of consciousness, carrying a hint of approval. A bit interesting, every step of this staircase contains the pressure of the destruction divine power. It is an excellent tempering for your spirit. The dragon phantom churned in his sea of consciousness, and a warm current injected into his limbs and bones, alleviating the soreness in his muscles. And continued to say to Shen Lion, "Continue, kid, strive to break through to the 100th step next time." Shen Lion nodded heavily, his eyes igniting with fighting spirit. He sat cross-legged on the 99th step and began to circulate his spirit power. The fragments of the law of destruction all around were like active spirits, which he actively drew into his body, constantly colliding and undergoing fusion with the power of the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon. The purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon above the altar slowly opened its eyes, its huge pupils reflecting the figure of the youth cultivating bitterly, and it let out a barely audible sigh. Time in the place of heritage seemed to be distorted. The dark green flames flickered day after day, unaware that over 1,000 days and nights had already passed. When Shen Lion coughed up a mist of blood for the 13th time during his cultivate, the sudden sharp pain in his palms made him realize that his joints had completed reshaping once again. This was the transformation brought about by the breakthrough of his spirit power, and also a gift after being crushed countless times by the destruction divine power between the 900-plus steps. 15-year-old Shen Lion had shed his childishness, his sword-like eyebrows were sharp, and his eyes held a composure that transcended his age. Dark purple dragon scale patterns faintly appeared on the side of his neck, and the mark of destruction between his eyebrows flickered with his breathing. Whenever he circulated his spirit power, it would bloom with an eerie purple light, reflecting the vermilion bird wings spread behind him. Over 5 years, Shen Lion's body had grown rapidly, and every gesture now faintly carried the pressure of a superior. 998th step. Shen Lion knelt on one knee on the stone steps, his knuckles deeply embedded into the stone surface carved with runes. The youth who had stopped at the 99th step 5 years ago was now bearing the destruction divine power capable of crushing mountains. His clothes had long been soaked with sweat, then dried in the high temperature, forming layers of salt frost. His messy hair stuck to his forehead, but it could not hide the blazing light jumping in his eyes. Memories surged in like a tide. When he had his breakthrough to Spirit Ancestor, he forcibly absorbed a 13,000-year spirit ring amidst a law storm of thunder and lightning, and then, the moment his dragon-slaying blade's fourth spirit ability, Dragon Breath Void-Breaking Slash, tore through the Void Realm, Huang Tian exclaimed in his sea of consciousness. This is the ancient talent of the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon. On the day he advanced to Spirit King, when the power of the 30,000-year spirit ring resonated with the power of destruction, giving birth to Shen Lion's fifth spirit ability, Void-Breaking Shadow-Splitting Slash, the space of the entire place of heritage was distorted, and even the sleeping purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon trembled because of it. Just one step away, Shen Lion slowly stood up, his legs trembling uncontrollably from overuse. Above the final step hovered a dark golden divine rune, and within the flowing light, the materialized form of the power of destruction could be vaguely seen. Shen Lion took a deep breath, his purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul operating at full power, and dark purple spirit power swept through his whole body like a volcanic eruption. When he took this step, their entire place of heritage suddenly shook violently. The green flames on both sides of the steps instantly turned purple, transforming into countless spears of destruction stabbing at him. "Open for me!" Shen Lion roared, his vermilion bird wings unfurling with a boom, as he simultaneously activated his fifth spirit ability, Void-Breaking Shadow-Splitting Slash, and his fourth spirit ability, Dragon Breath Void-Breaking Slash. Carrying the scorching dragon breath, Shen Lion collided head-on with the pressure brought by the power of destruction, and the resulting energy storm knocked him over. Shen Lion flipped in the air, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his eyes became increasingly determined. The 999th step, he was determined to conquer it. Then Shen Lion wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, his dark purple pupils reflecting the dark golden divine rune flowing on the final step. Shen Lion took a deep breath, every nerve taut like a bowstring, and the spirit power within his body, driven by the purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon martial soul, turned into a boiling torrent. "Huh!" With an earth-shaking roar, Shen Lion used all his strength, and finally stepped onto the 999th step. In an instant, their entire place of heritage shook violently, and the phantoms of stars above the dome burst one after another, turning into flowing light filling the sky. The destruction divine power that had originally been like Mount Tai pressing down on him receded like a tide, and in its place was a gentle energy, like a mother's hand gently stroking every inch of Shen Lion's skin, nourishing his exhausted body. Shen Lion slumped on the steps, feeling the numbness and relief coming from his limbs and bones, the ecstasy of surviving a disaster and the ease of relief intertwined. A blinding purple light suddenly exploded in Shen Lion's sea of consciousness, and a majestic voice echoed in his mind like a great bell. "The first trial of destruction is complete. The second trial of destruction will open when you advance to Spirit Saint. Now, distributing rewards, each spirit ring's age increased by 5,000 years, and one God-bestowed spirit ring." As the voice fell, brilliant light erupted from Shen Lion's body, and his 5 spirit rings slowly rose from beneath his feet, circling and dancing in the air. The original yellow first spirit ring began to tremble violently, its light shining brightly, the yellow radiance gradually swallowed by purple, its patterns becoming deeper and more complex, finally settling as a 5,800-year purple spirit ring. The light of the second spirit ring constantly condensed, leaping from 1,700 years to 6,700 years, emitting a more intense purple light. The third spirit ring emitted a roar like a dragon, the purple instantly turning into pitch black, like the deep night sky, its age reaching 11,000 years. The fourth and fifth spirit rings also transformed in the light, their ages leaping to 18,000 years and 35,000 years respectively. Looking at the purple-purple-black-black-black spirit ring configuration in front of him, Shen Lion's hands trembled slightly. This was not just a symbol of strength, but also a testament to his 5 years of struggling day after day on these steps, fighting countless times against the destruction divine power. And with the surge in spirit ring ages, a majestic spirit power surged within him, coupled with the fact that Shen Lion was already at the critical point of level 59. So Shen Lion's spirit power broke through the shackles of level 59 like a burst flood. Shen Lion only felt a violent vibration coming from his dantian, and a warm and powerful force traveled through his meridians throughout his body. Shen Lion's skin glowed with a faint purple light, and the phantom of the purple radiance world-extinguishing dragon behind him became more solidified, even to the point where the patterns on every scale could be clearly seen. Broken through, I have finally become a spirit emperor. Shen Lion roared towards the sky, his voice full of uncontrollable excitement and joy. At this moment, the void realm of the place of heritage resonated, and Huang Tian, the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon in Shen Lion's sea of consciousness, also opened its eyes, a glimmer of gratification flashing in its huge pupils. Chapter 14, Preparing to go to Douluo Continent. After his breakthrough, Shen Lion took out that God-bestowed spirit ring. Shen Lion prepared to absorb this God-bestowed spirit ring as his sixth spirit ring. Shen Lion sat cross-legged on the ground with his legs folded in a lotus position. The God-bestowed spirit ring in his palm hovered in midair, resembling a pale crescent moon, and within the halo flowing on its surface, a faint dragon-shaped phantom could be seen flickering in and out of existence. Shen Lion took a deep breath, and dark purple spirit power surged out like a tidal wave from the acupoints all over his body, condensing into a layer of fine-scale armor on his skin. At the same time, the biting cold saber kai of his dragon-slaying blade spirit materialized, condensing into a massive blade shadow behind him. The power of the two spirits intertwined and wrapped around each other, forming a mysterious protective barrier. The moment the God-bestowed spirit ring touched Shen Lion's forehead, a burst of violent energy surged into his meridians like a dam breaking, as if it wanted to tear his body apart completely. Shen Lion groaned, his face instantly flushing red, veins bulging on his forehead and cold sweat rolling down like large beads. He gritted his teeth, forcibly circulating his spirit power to guide this force to converge toward his spirit. The light of the spirit ring began to change drastically. The pure white halo gradually took on a bright yellow hue, like the rising morning sun, emitting a warm and gentle glow. Immediately after, the yellow gradually deepened, turning into a profound purple, as if night had fallen and stars were twinkling. Finally, the purple was swallowed by an intense black. An ink-black spirit ring hovered above Shen Lion's head, its surface dragon-shaped patterns lifelike, with every line flowing with mysterious destruction, divine power. As the absorption deepened, the age of the spirit ring began to grow steadily. 10,000 years, 20,000 years, 30,000 years. When the age surpassed 50,000 years, the entire place of heritage trembled violently. Ancient and mysterious world-destroying runes appeared on the dome, boiling dark purple lava seeped out from the basalt altar on the ground, and the air was filled with the pungent scent of sulfur. Shen Lion's bones made cracking sounds like popping beans, and the mark of destruction on his forehead pulsed wildly, creating a strong resonance with the spirit ring. It can be even stronger. Shen Lion roared, and the phantom of the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon behind him solidified completely, every scale flashing with dark purple light. Ignoring the sharp pain in his meridians, Shen Lion forcibly guided more energy to inject into the spirit ring. However, when the age reached 63,700 years, purple-gold blood began to seep from Shen Lion's 7 orifices, and the dragon-slaying blade spirit in his sea of consciousness showed fine cracks, as if it would shatter at any moment. Enough! Shen Lion used his last bit of strength to cut off the energy connection with the spirit ring. The ink-black spirit ring slowly descended into his spirit, blooming with dazzling light in the 6th spirit ring slot. In an instant, a majestic force erupted from within his body. His level 61 spirit power was like a volcanic eruption, and the powerful shockwave caused the passage of the place of heritage to shake, sending stones falling. Huang Tian, in the sea of consciousness, felt this power and let out a roar of shock. Shen Lion slowly stood up, his eyes flashing with excitement. Shen Lion drew his dragon-slaying blade and whispered. 6th spirit ability, Dragon Flame Heaven Burning Slash. The moment the dragon-slaying blade was swung, a blade radiance wrapped in purple and black dragon flames tore through the air, ripping a 10-meter-long flame fissure in the void realm. Wherever the blade radiance passed, the air steamed and twisted violently, and even the ancient runes on the altar's stone pillars were burned into indentations. This ability fuses the origin flame of the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon with the destruction divine power. It has already surpassed the scope of ordinary spirit abilities. Huang Tian's voice echoed in Shen Lion's sea of consciousness. Shen Lion wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and cast his gaze toward the exit of the place of heritage. He reached out to touch the storage soul guidance device at his waist, which contained the jade slip that Zhu Tiangxiang had given him 5 years ago. It detailed the insights of the Zhu family's powerhouses who had awakened the purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon, but Shen Lion had not needed it 5 years ago. "Little rascal," Shen Lion murmured in a low voice, his fingertips gently brushing over the mark of destruction on his forehead, a look of determination flashing in his eyes. "The ice and fire yin-yang well, 100,000-year spirit beast, these should all have a new owner." Actually, when Shen Lion was 12, he had wanted to go to the Douluo Continent because he was afraid that he and the little rascal were the same age. If he went too late, he wouldn't know how to intercept his opportunities. However, because of the god's trial, the idea of going to the Douluo Continent had been suppressed in his heart for 3 years, and now it could finally be realized. Then Shen Lion prepared to leave the place of heritage. The light curtain of the place of heritage closed behind him with a boom, and the falling ancient runes turned into specks of faint light that dissipated into the air. Shen Lion took a deep breath, and dark purple spirit power circulated around his body, dispelling all the fatigue from 5 years of bitter cultivation. He strode through the silent palace corridor, the moonlight gilding his figure with a mysterious halo, and the mark of destruction at his waist grew slightly warm with each step, as if urging him to embark on a new journey. Inside the imperial study, the candlelight flickered. Zhu Tiangxiang was frowning and deep in thought while facing a yellowed ancient map, his aged fingers unconsciously stroking the mottled handwriting on it. Suddenly hearing familiar footsteps outside the door, he looked up sharply, and the brush in his hand dropped onto the desk with a clatter. "Zyro Lion." Zhu Tiangxiang hurried forward to meet him, his cloudy eyes full of surprise and concern, but his footsteps paused slightly when he touched upon the faint, lingering pressure of destruction surrounding Shen Lion. Shen Lion knelt on one knee and cupped his fists in a salute. "Grandfather." Shen Lion's voice was steady and powerful, yet it could not hide the excitement within. Zhu Tiangxiang lifted his grandson up with trembling hands, his gaze lingering for a long time on the mark of destruction on Shen Lion's forehead, his voice filled with uncontrollable excitement. "Zyro Lion, have you completed the god's trial?" Shen Lion nodded heavily, his eyes flashing with light, and then said to Zhu Tiangxiang, "Grandfather, the first trial has been successfully completed, but the location of the second trial is very far away, and I need to set off immediately." Shen Lion deliberately blurred the specific location, fearing that his elders would try to stop him in every possible way if they knew the truth. The old man's face instantly became grave, and he tightened his grip on Shen Lion's arm. "How far is it?" Zhu Tiangxiang's voice trembled, as if he had already sensed that this would be a long separation. "Grandfather, it is a mysterious place that is not even marked on any map." Shen Lion held the old man's calloused hand and said to him in a firm tone, "But you need not worry, my strength is not what it used to be, and I will definitely return safely. Once I complete the god's trial, I will return to your side immediately." Zhu Tiangxiang was silent for a long time, his eyes full of reluctance and worry, but he also knew deeply that the god's trial concerned the family's honor and his grandson's future. Zhu Tiangxiang sighed deeply and took out an ancient jade pendant from his bosom, engraved with a lifelike purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon, and then said to Shen Lion, "This is a protective jade pendant that can withstand 3 attacks from a titled Douluo. Keep it with you and be careful outside. Do not be impulsive when encountering trouble." Then Shen Lion left the palace. Chapter 15, Arriving at Douluo Continent. After leaving the palace, Shen Lion hurried back to the Shen mansion without a moment's rest. It was already late at night, but the Shen mansion was brightly lit, clearly indicating that his family was anxiously waiting for news from him. As soon as Zhu Ningxin saw her son, tears welled up in her eyes, and she rushed forward to hug him tightly. "My son, you have finally returned safely." Shen Meng and General Shen Long stood to the side, and though they did not speak, their eyes were full of concern and pride. Looking at his loved ones before him, Shen Lion felt a mix of emotion and reluctance. "Grandfather, father, mother, I have completed the first god's trial, but the second trial is imminent, and I must set out on another journey." He repeated what he had told Zhu Tiangxiang. "You must take good care of yourself." Choking back sobs, Zhu Ningxin kept stuffing various foods and clothes into Shen Lion's storage soul guidance device, then said to him, "Add clothes if you are cold, eat if you are hungry, and never mistreat yourself. Shen Meng patted his son's shoulder, his voice low but filled with deep affection. Do not force things when you encounter trouble, as long as the green hills remain. There will be no shortage of firewood. General Shen Long held Shen Lion's hand tightly, his cloudy eyes glistening with tears. A son of our Shen family will surely make a name for himself, but remember, no matter what happens, this will always be your home. Amidst his family's repeated exhortations, Shen Lion set out on the road to the coast. Looking back, the lights of the Shen mansion flickered in the night, gradually turning into a blurred point of light. He gripped the jade pendant in his hand, and dark purple spirit power condensed beneath his feet, turning into a stream of light as he sped off into the distance. In the night sky, stars twinkled, as if guiding the young man on his journey. The salty sea breeze, carrying fine raindrops, lashed against Shen Lion's face. He stood on the rugged, rocky coastline, gazing out at the turbulent sea. Dark purple spirit power surged beneath his feet, faintly resonating with the rhythm of the waves. After 7 days of traveling day and night, the young man's robes were already covered in dust, but it could not hide the increasingly fervent longing in his eyes. Huang Tian. Shen Lion bit his fingertip, and a drop of essence blood bloomed into dark purple patterns in the air, causing the million-year spirit beast sleeping within his spirit to awaken with a boom. In an instant, the world changed color, dark clouds churned, and a figure that blotted out the sky emerged from the void realm. The purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon, Huang Tian, swung his 100-meter-long tail, the collision of his scales producing a roar like clashing metal and stone, and the foul wind stirred up waves several zhang high. Why have you summoned me? Have you encountered a powerful enemy? Huang Tian's voice made his eardrums ache, and flames of vigilance burned in his huge vertical pupils. Shen Lion leaped onto Huang Tian's back, gripping the dragon scales with his fingertips. There is no danger, it is just that this journey across the sea is too long. With your speed, you will surely help me reach my destination sooner. Shen Lion looked toward the vast ocean, where countless unknown dangers were hidden, and then continued, I need to reach the Douluo Continent as soon as possible. Upon hearing this, Huang Tian raised his dragon head slightly and let out a long, helpless roar. I thought it was something important to actually make me, a million-year spirit beast, your mount. Although he said this, he slowly lowered his body, signaling for Shen Lion to sit tight. Hold on tight, don't get swept away by the wind and waves. With a deafening dragon roar, Huang Tian spread his huge dragon wings and instantly soared into the sky. His speed was as fast as lightning. Wherever he passed, the air was torn apart with a shrill whistle. Shen Lion had calculated that Huang Tian's speed was 10 times that of a speed type titled Douluo. Shen Lion felt the scenery before him receding rapidly, the seawater turning into a blue glowing ribbon, stretching out beneath his feet. However, beneath the seemingly calm sea surface, dangers lurked everywhere. In just half a day, they encountered their first attack. Dozens of pitch-blue soul-eating sharks broke through the water, their sharp teeth gleaming with cold light, carving deadly arcs across the sea surface. Huang Tian snorted disdainfully, and a terrifying pressure erupted from his body, with his purple dragon might spreading out like a physical substance. The soul-eating sharks immediately froze in midair, their eyes filled with fear, and they sank back into the seabed one after another. These are just small fries. Huang Tian's voice carried a hint of disdain, and then he continued, countless terrifying existences are hidden in the deep sea. Even a titled Douluo would only find a dead end if they ventured in alone. Huang Tian's words made Shen Lion's heart tighten, and he scanned his surroundings vigilantly. At the same time, it made Shen Lion understand why no one had discovered the existence of the other continent until now. Then, over the next month or so, they encountered no less than 10 sieges by sea spirit beasts. There were thunderstorm octopuses capable of controlling lightning, and abyss giant pythons that spat highly toxic venom. Whenever danger approached, Huang Tian only needed a roar or a casual wave of his dragon claw to defeat the enemies. Those powerful sea spirit beasts of hundreds of thousands of years were as fragile as ants in the face of Huang Tian's absolute strength. Shen Lion lay on Huang Tian's back, feeling the oncoming gale, and inwardly rejoiced that he had such a powerful partner to help him. He looked at the surging seawater below. Those huge shadows hidden in the darkness gave him a deeper understanding of the mystery and danger of the Douluo Continent. And Huang Tian's existence was not only his reliance for crossing this sea area, but also his confidence for wandering the Douluo Continent in the future. Finally, on a misty morning, the outline in the distance gradually became clear. That was the coastline of the Douluo Continent. Huang Tian slowly lowered his altitude, the gale stirred up by his dragon wings blowing a deep trench into the sea surface. Shen Lion clenched his fists, his eyes flashing with excitement. A thrilling adventure was about to unfold. Shen Lion eventually reached the shore. The salty, fishy sea breeze, carrying the scent of rotting seaweed, rushed toward him. Shen Lion looked at the towering walls of vast sea city, where the mottled sea god reliefs shimmered with a greenish-grey hue in the twilight. The dark purple spirit power, left behind when Huang Tian returned to his place, coursed through his palms, reminding him that he had stepped into entirely unfamiliar land. Under the city gate, the flow of people was like weaving fabric. Hunters carrying animal skins hung crudely made items at their waists that couldn't even be considered spirit tools. These simple devices, which even children in the Sun Moon Empire would disdain, were now regarded as treasures. Stepping into the bluestone street, Shen Lion was knocked off balance by the oncoming clamor. In the blacksmith shop, the crimson furnace fire illuminated the apprentice's sweating face. The moment the liquid metal was poured into the mold, the master craftsman's hammer, formed from spirit power, fell precisely, and the splashing sparks outlined simple runes in the air. "Sir, take a look at this snake-toothed dagger, hunted from a century-old spirit beast." The shop assistant's hawking was interrupted by shouting from the tavern. What I encountered in the Stardew Great Forest was definitely a 1,000-year-old Datura snake. A bare-chested man slammed the table and stood up. The sound of the shattering wine bowl startled the seabirds under the eaves. Shen Lion rubbed the Sun Moon Empire silver coins in his sleeve. The cold touch formed a stark contrast with the bustling marketplace before his eyes. Shen Lion's gaze swept over the Pei mansion at the end of the street. The copper nails on the vermilion gate had been polished bright from being touched, and the sounds of string and bamboo instruments mixed with the crisp clinking of porcelain drifted from within. At midnight, Shen Lion turned into a dark purple afterimage and swept over the ridge of the Pei mansion. The fine dust on the seahorse totem on the roof tiles was shaken off by his spirit power, revealing the mottled carvings underneath. The mechanism of the treasure pavilion was more ingenious than imagined, and the raised star map patterns on the ground glowed with a dim blue light. When his fingertips touched the third star, the entire wall suddenly flipped, and poisoned spikes struck like a rainstorm. But fortunately, Shen Lion was agile, dodged them, and entered the treasure vault. Chapter 16, Going to Niuding City to determine the timeline. Then Shen Lion saw a small mountain of gold coins, shimmering enticingly under the candlelight. Shen Lion quickly swept the 100,000 coins into his storage soul guidance device. Just at this moment, the sound of chains dragging came from outside the door. "There's a thief." The sound of a gong tore through the night sky, and dozens of spirit power fluctuations surged in from all directions. Shen Lion's pupils glowed with purple light, and his vermilion bird wings unfurled behind him. The moment he crashed through the window frame, he caught a glimpse of the tokens at the pursuer's waists. They were unmistakably the marks of Spirit Hall. The next morning, Shen Lion slipped out of the city, hidden within a grain transport caravan. The Douluo Continent map in his embrace was soaked with sweat, the words Stardew Great Forest circled specifically by him. Then Shen Lion prepared to locate that Niuding city on the map. Because Shen Lion needed to first determine at what point the current timeline had developed. Shen Lion unfurled his dark purple vermilion bird wings and wove through the clouds. On the vast plains below, villages scattered like stars and winding rivers formed a magnificent scroll, yet his gaze remained locked on the red dot marked Niuding City on the map. As his spirit wings flapped, the space rippled slightly, leaving a faint purple trail wherever he passed, startling flocks of birds in the forests below. 7 days later, the silhouette of Niuding City finally became clear in his field of vision. The towering city walls shimmered with a rustic grey-blue hue. The crowd coming and going at the city gate was as bustling as an anthill, and the cries of peddlers and the rumble of carriage wheels mixed with fluctuations of spirit power rushed towards him. Shen Lion folded his wings, transformed into a black shadow, and swept over the city wall, heading straight for the Niuding Elementary Spirit Master Academy. Inside the academy, the crisp shouts of spirit cultivation and the laughter of children intertwined. In the center of the playground, several youths were controlling their spirits for sparring, the raised dust flying about in the sunlight. Shen Lion flashed into the corner of the academy, hiding under a wisteria trellis, where the purple flower clusters hanging between the vines swayed gently. He swept his gaze over the laughing students in the distance and locked onto the young girl with a ponytail, Zairozu. At this moment, the girl was talking to a companion, her hair tips swaying gently with her movements. "Excuse me, fellow student." Shen Lion called out, his deep, magnetic voice carrying a unique penetrating power. Zairozu turned her head at the sound, her textbook nearly slipping from her hand. The youth before her stood tall as a pine, his dark purple training outfit outlining his slender physique. Beneath his sword-like brows, a pair of eyes were as deep as an abyss, and the purple mark of destruction between his brows shimmered with a mysterious light under the sun, as if flames were leaping within it. She felt her heart rate suddenly quicken, her footsteps moving towards Shen Lion involuntarily, her cheeks flushing red. "Handsome, what do you need me for?" "I would like to ask about someone." Shen Lion leaned down slightly, his gaze carrying a sense of scrutiny, and then continued to say to Zairozu, "Does your academy have someone named Tang San?" Shen Lion deliberately lowered his voice, the mark of destruction unconsciously shining slightly, seemingly sensing the surrounding spirit power fluctuations. Zairozu swallowed, trying hard to calm herself down. "Handsome, we do have a person named Tang San in our academy, but I heard he is graduating soon. He should be with his master Yu Zairogang right now. Are you looking for him? I can take you there." She secretly scrutinized Shen Lion's expression, full of anticipation for a response. Shen Lion breathed a sigh of relief inwardly, his fingertips unconsciously stroking the storage soul guidance device at his waist. If he missed the timeline, those resources from his memory would end up in the hands of that little rascal. "No need, just asking." Shen Lion's tone was indifferent as he tossed a gold coin. The gold coin traced an arc in the air, landing in Zairozu's palm, and then Shen Lion said to Zairozu, "Sorry to trouble you." Watching Shen Lion's retreating back, Zairozu stood frozen in place, the gold coin in her hand still warm. The youth's hem fluttered in the wind, and his dark purple afterimage lingered in her mind for a long time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to Infinite Novel Audiobooks. After leaving the academy, Shen Lion merged into the bustling street. He stopped in front of a tea house, listening to the tea customers chatting. "Saint Spirit Village. It's to the northwest of New Uding City, but it's just a small village. I heard that a few years ago, an innate full spirit power genius came out of there, but it was just a blue-silver grass spirit." The tea customer's words caused a cold sneer to curl the corners of Shen Lion's lips. He gazed at the northwestern sky, a look of determination flickering in his eyes. The spirit bone of Tang San's mother behind the waterfall must not be obtained by that little rascal in the end, no matter what. Dark purple spirit power condensed into wind blades under Shen Lion's feet, propelling him to dash towards the northwest like an arrow released from a bow. The mountain forests he passed were whipped up into whistles, startling countless birds in the forest. An hour later, the low-roofed thatched cottages of Saint Spirit Village finally appeared in his field of vision, with curling wisps of cooking smoke rising, interweaving with the rolling green mountains in the distance to form a tranquil pastoral painting. But Shen Lion did not stop. His gaze was locked firmly on the cloud-shrouded mountain peak behind the village. That was where the purpose of Shen Lion's arrival here was hidden. Shen Lion moved along the cliff wall, his keen perception constantly vigilant for surrounding spirit power fluctuations. After passing through a thicket of thorny bushes, a deafening sound of rushing water suddenly rang out. A silvery white waterfall plunged from 100 meters high like an overturned galaxy, the splashing mist refracting a brilliant rainbow under the sunlight. But Shen Lion had no time to admire the scenery. His pupils contracted slightly, staring fixedly at the faint shadow behind the waterfall. Huang Tian. In an instant, the void realm twisted, and a figure blotting out the sky slowly emerged from within. The purple imperial heaven-destroying dragon, Huang Tian, stretched out its 100-meter-long dragon body. Its scales shimmered with an eerie purple light under the sun, and cold flames burned within its huge vertical pupils. Wherever it passed, the air emitted an unbearable cracking sound. Why did you suddenly summon me out? Huang Tian's voice rang out like thunder, shaking the surrounding rocks until they crumbled and fell. Shen Lion scanned his surroundings vigilantly. A troublesome guy might be hiding here. His name is Tang Hao. Back then, he alone severely injured 3-titled Douluo. His strength is unfathomable. If he is nearby with my current strength. Shen Lion clenched his fists, dark purple spirit power surging in his palms. Upon hearing this, Huang Tian let out a sky-shaking laugh, waving its dragon claw casually, instantly turning a nearby boulder into powder. Rest assured with me here, even if that Tang Hao comes, I will make sure he never returns. I'd like to see just how capable he really is. Having received Huang Tian's assurance, Shen Lion took a deep breath, leaped, and plunged into the waterfall like a purple bolt of lightning. The icy water washed over his body, but relying on his powerful spirit power to form a shield, he passed through the water curtain unscathed. The cave behind the waterfall was pitch black, and the damp, moldy smell mixed with the scent of soil rushed towards him. Shen Lion circulated his spirit power, and dark purple light burst from his palms, illuminating the scene inside the cave. He saw that the cave walls were covered in moss, the ground was damp, and water droplets fell from overhead from time to time. Chapter 17, Blue-Silver Emperor Spirit Bone Ice and Fire Yin-Yang Well. In the corner of the cave, a stalk of blue-silver grass swayed in the faint light. Although its leaves displayed a faint blue-gold color, it was clearly failing to thrive. The leaves were curled up and devoid of vitality. Is this Tang San's mother? Shen Lion frowned as he examined this stalk of blue-silver grass. It was hard to imagine that this seemingly ordinary blue-silver grass was actually transformed after 100,000-year spirit beast sacrificed itself. Then Shen Lion muttered to himself. Tang Hao, oh Tang Hao, you claim to love her, yet you planted her in this dark, sunless place. Truly laughable. Ignoring the blue-silver emperor from then on, Shen Lion began to search the cave carefully. His gaze swept over every corner like a hawk, his hands rummaging through the damp soil, not letting any suspicious spot go unchecked. Finally, in the wall deep within the cave, he discovered an archaic wooden box, with delicate vine patterns carved onto its lid. Shen Lion opened it to take a look. Inside was hidden the right leg bone of the 100,000-year blue-silver emperor. After obtaining this spirit bone, Shen Lion placed the box into his storage ring, but the lingering cold sensation on his fingertips refused to fade. Inside the cave behind the waterfall, the sound of the gurgling underground river seemed to become hurried, as if urging him to leave quickly. Shen Lion took a deep breath to calm the surging emotions in his heart, then stepped slowly out of the waterfall. The water curtain poured down, droplets splashing onto his shoulders, refracting into tiny specks of silver light under the moonlight. He looked up at Huang Tian, who was hovering in midair. The latter was surrounded by dark red spirit light, like a burning flame. Huang Tian, I've got it, let's retreat. Shen Lion's voice was low and powerful, echoing through the empty valley. A flash of brilliance crossed Huang Tian's eyes, and the spirit light around his body suddenly contracted, turning into a stream of light that merged into Shen Lion's spirit. Then a pair of scorching vermilion bird wings suddenly unfurled from Shen Lion's back, the feathers burning with pale red flames, distorting the surrounding air. With a clear, resonant cry, Shen Lion shot into the sky, his figure streaking across the night like a meteor. The Saint Spirit village beneath his feet gradually shrank until it became a blurry shadow. The whistling wind rushed past his ears, blowing Shen Lion's hair wildly, but his gaze remained firmly fixed ahead. During the flight, Shen Lion took out a map of the Douluo Continent. Moonlight spilled onto the map, revealing the mountains and rivers of the Douluo Continent. Shen Lion's slender fingers slid quickly across the map, finally stopping at an area marked Sunset Forest. It was covered by heavy shadows, as if hiding countless unknown secrets. Ice and Fire Yin-Yang Well. Shen Lion whispered softly, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. He naturally knew that not only were there countless precious immortal herbs there, but it also concealed an opportunity that could change one's physique. Although he did not have the photographic memory that other fanfiction protagonists possessed, the key information regarding the Ice and Fire Yin-Yang Well had long been deeply imprinted in his mind. Shen Lion's truest thought was, I may not use it, but I cannot be without it. Shen Lion clenched his fists, his conviction growing firmer. Shen Lion only remembered that if one consumed the two immortal herbs, one ice and one fire, beside the spring water, and then entered the spring, they could achieve body refining through ice and fire. At the same time, he did not forget the precautions for collecting immortal herbs. One must use jade blades and boxes to retain the medicinal efficacy of the immortal herbs to the maximum extent. The frequency of his vermilion bird wings beating gradually increased, and the flames grew more vigorous. Under Shen Lion's full-speed flight, the distant sunset forest finally appeared in his field of vision. The pitch-black forest was like a dormant behemoth, emitting a heart-palpitating pressure. Shen Lion took a deep breath, adjusted his posture, and flew toward the outskirts of the sunset forest. The twilight was like thick blood, flowing slowly along the edge of Shen Lion's blade. The moment Shen Lion stepped into the sunset forest, the last ray of sunlight was swallowed by the uneven canopy. The damp, rotting leaves crunched under his feet with a teeth-grinding sound, startling up patches of ghost-blue poisonous mist that looked like phosphorus fire. Shen Lion gripped the dagger at his waist, his pupils condensing into cold stars within the miasma, thinking to himself. This dead, silent land that even birds and beasts avoided had finally arrived. Then, for the next 3 days and nights, Shen Lion moved through the gloomy forest like a tireless lone wolf. Thorns tore his clothes, and poisonous vines left blue-purple marks on his skin, but his gaze grew even more determined. When the strange fragrance of sulfur and borneol intertwined with the fishy stench of humus, he knew he had found the right direction. The moment his fingertips touched the sticky wall of mist, the dark purple miasma churned under the moonlight like boiling poisonous porridge. The occasional shadow of a beast passing by would instantly turn into white bones within the toxic gas. Shen Lion swallowed hard, yet he was exceptionally excited, because Shen Lion knew that the ice and fire yin-yang well he was looking for was right at the core of this poisonous miasma. Huang Tian, come out quickly. Following a dragon roar that shattered the mist, a giant dragon burning with purple flames burst out of the clouds. Its dragon scales crackled in the poisonous miasma, steaming up pungent white fog. Then Shen Lion thought, Douluo will likely come at any moment. Shen Lion stroked Huang Tian's scorching dragon horns, a cold light flashing in his eyes, and then continued. The things in this treasure land are mine now. Then Huang Tian let out a low moan and lowered its body. The hurricane stirred up by its dragon wings temporarily blew away the poisonous miasma, carrying Shen Lion into this forbidden land full of unknowns. When the full view of the ice and fire yin-yang well suddenly slammed into his field of vision, Shen Lion held his breath. The spring eye red as molten gold, and the water flow, azure as profound ice, intertwined at the bottom of the valley. Hundreds of immortal herbs floated within the steaming mist, the dew condensed on their leaves refracting rainbow light. These heaven and earth treasures recorded in ancient books were now within reach. Just as he was about to leap down, Huang Tian's dragon tail suddenly swept across his shoulder, and it called out to Shen Lion. There is the aura of a titled Douluo. The giant dragon's roar shook the cliff walls, causing rocks to fall with a rustle, and then Huang Tian continued to say to Shen Lion, Do you want me to tear Douluo apart? Shen Lion looked at the emerald-green figure, gradually becoming clear in the poisonous miasma, a cold smile curling on his lips. The fishy, sweet scent unique to Douluo's jade phosphor serpent spirit was rushing toward him, mixed with the poisonous mist. Do it! Shen Lion drew his jade blade, a cold glint sweeping across a Wangchun autumn begonia, and then said to Huang Tian, Keeping him will only ruin my plans, and I am also afraid of variables appearing. Then Shen Lion added a sentence in his heart. Although I am the biggest variable. After hearing Shen Lion's words, Huang Tian turned into a meteor and dove toward Douluo's direction. Shen Lion had also slid toward the valley floor, stepping on the vines of the immortal herbs. Then, as the jade blade rose and fell, emerald-green juice surged from the broken roots of the Kaiying Tongshan chrysanthemum, and the immortal herb Yaoxiang Kiluo trembled gently under the jade blade. Shen Lion was fully focused, but because he was unfamiliar with the habits of some immortal herbs, his movements were slightly flustered. The root systems of some immortal herbs snapped under the jade blade, losing their vitality. Some leaves were knocked off, and precious juice seeped into the soil. Chapter 18: Harvesting the Ice and Fire Yin-Yang Well. Even so, Shen Lion had no time to spare. He raced against time to place the intact immortal herbs into jade boxes, then into his storage ring. Naturally, Shen Lion did not let the seeds go either. He packed them all up to take with him. When Douluo Bo's screams exploded within the poisonous miasma, nearly 70 immortal herbs had already been properly stored. However, nearly 1/3 of the unidentified rare medicinal herbs had withered into dead branches during the hasty harvesting. Shen Lion let out a long sigh of relief. Looking at the jade boxes in the storage ring in his hand, his eyes held both the joy of the harvest and regret for the destroyed immortal herbs. But Shen Lion was not sad, because for him, as long as they were with him, that was enough. Shen Lion's fingertips brushed over the frost flowers, condensed on the octagonal mysterious ice grass. The ice crystals refracted a deep blue light, reflecting a faint glimmer in his eyes. The flame-shaped petals of the blazing apricot delicate fragrance trembled gently, dyeing his shadow into a flickering crimson gold. Two extreme auras converged in his palm, steaming with wisps of white mist, resembling a silent contest. A breeze blew past, picking up a few leftover leaves of the immortal herbs, spinning them in the air. Shen Lion looked up at the sky, and the cold, stern face of the god of destruction appeared in his mind. He calculated inwardly that the next time he met the god of destruction, he would definitely ask this big shot of the god realm if he knew the specific uses of these immortal herbs. On second thought, perhaps taking Huangtian to Spirit Hall and asking Yu Guan would also be a good idea. Yue Guan also knew the specific uses of the immortal herbs. With his thoughts returned, Shen Lion's gaze focused once again on the two unharvested immortal herbs before him. The octagonal mysterious ice grass and the blazing apricot delicate fragrance swayed gently in the breeze, as if telling him of their unique mission. He knew that leaving them behind was for a crucial ice and fire body refining. Taking a deep breath, Shen Lion circulated his spirit power, and a faint halo appeared at his fingertips. With a crisp snapping sound, the two immortal herbs fell into his palms. The sensations of cold and scorching heat arrived simultaneously, forming a strange contrast. Shen Lion did not hesitate to put the two immortal herbs into his mouth. In an instant, two completely different energies, like wild horses breaking free from their reins, rampaged through his meridians. The icy cold Kai strung every inch of his skin like silver needles, while the scorching power surged through his body like magma. Enduring the intense pain, he leaped into the spring water of the ice and fire yin-yang well. The moment the spring water touched his skin, Shen Lion's body stiffened violently. The bone-chilling cold and the scorching heat waves struck at the same time, as if countless sharp blades were cutting his body. Inside his body, the ice and fire energy of the immortal herbs flowed crazily. Outside his body, the ice and fire power of the spring water struck continuously. Under this double torture, the veins on Shen Lion's body bulged, and his face was filled with a pained expression. But he gritted his teeth and forced himself to stay conscious, because he knew this was an opportunity for transformation. For 7 days and 7 nights, in this spring water that seemed isolated from the world, Shen Lion experienced countless moments of hovering on the edge of life and death. When the medicinal effect of the immortal herbs within his body was finally exhausted, his physique also underwent a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering change. His skin became crystal clear, with faint flowing light flickering. His bones emitted subtle crisp sounds, as if they were being reshaped. However, when Shen Lion was preparing to surface, a rumor he had heard in his past life suddenly exploded in his mind. It was said that the ice and fire yin-yang well was actually the place where the Ice Dragon King and the Fire Dragon King met their end, and their corpses were still sleeping at the bottom of the spring. This thought was like a prairie fire, instantly igniting Shen Lion's curiosity. Shen Lion took a deep breath, dove back into the water, and swam toward the unknown depths. The further down he went, the greater the water pressure and the darker the light became. I do not know how much time passed, but finally, 2 huge dragon skeletons appeared before Shen Lion's eyes. Their massive bodies lay across the bottom of the spring. Although only white bones remained, they still exuded a heart-palpitating pressure. The skeleton of the Ice Dragon King glowed with a faint blue light, with wisps of cold Kai binding his body. The skeleton of the Fire Dragon King was as crimson as blood, with sparks faintly leaping between the bone joints. Shen Lion discovered with shock that the formation of the ice and fire yin yang well actually originated from the majestic energy that erupted from the spirit bones after these two dragon kings died. His gaze fell upon the left and right arm bones of the ice and fire dragon king, and a trace of greed flashed in Shen Lion's eyes. He did not hesitate in the slightest, reaching out to collect those two spirit bones into his storage ring. The moment he put away the spirit bones, the entire ice and fire yin-yang well began to tremble violently. The spring water churned, the light dimmed, and the spirit power, which had originally been dense to the point of substance, began to drain away crazily. Shen Lion broke through the water, looking at the ice and fire yin-yang well that was gradually losing its luster, and a cold smile curled at the corner of his mouth. He brushed the water droplets off his body and turned to leave. To him, he had obtained everything he wanted. As for the future of this ice and fire yin-yang well, what did it have to do with him? As long as he became strong, nothing else was to be feared. As for why he did not absorb the two divine rank spirit bones now, it was because Shen Lion cherished his life. Shen Lion dared not guarantee that his current spirit power as a spirit emperor would be enough to absorb the spirit bones of the ice and fire dragon king on his own. Therefore, Shen Lion planned to collect them first. Anyway, sooner or later, he would be the one to absorb them. Then Shen Lion checked the spirit spring, which contained the origin kai of heaven and earth, one last time. His fingertips brushed over the residual aura of the immortal herbs on the bank, and after confirming there were no emissions, he slowly climbed up the rock wall covered in ice crystals and lava. The spirit power fluctuations coming from above made the air buzz. As soon as he poked half his body out, he was shocked by the scene before him, his pupils shrinking sharply. On the open ground in the distance, Huang Tian's body was binding with dark golden dragon scales, teasing Douluo as if he were playing with an ant. Poison Douluo's silver-grey hair danced wildly in the air waves, the veins on his forehead bulged, and 9 spirit rings exploded into a brilliant rainbow behind him. Evil dragon, take this move of my 9th spirit ability, Jade Phosphorus Divine Light. Douluo's roar tore through the sky, and dark green spirit power condensed crazily in his palms, as if a demon that had been sealed for 1,000 years was about to awaken. The Black 9th spirit ring trembled violently, and the phantom of the snake-shaped spirit ring hissed, turning into a torrent that surged into his body. In an instant, a jade-green beam of light with a diameter of over a zhang erupted with a boom. Wherever it passed, the air twisted into strange ripples, the ground cracked inch by inch, and the rising poisonous mist instantly corroded the vegetation within 100 meters into black residue. Huang Tian, however, lazily narrowed his vertical pupils, a scarlet snake tongue licking across his fangs, and a look of contempt curved at the corner of his mouth. Small tricks. With a low dragon roar, a ball of dragon breath enveloped in thunder, and purple flames surged out from his mouth. The moment the dragon breath collided with the jade phosphorus divine light, the space seemed to be fiercely torn apart by an invisible giant hand, and a blinding white light swallowed the entire sky. Shen Lion had to raise his hand to shield his eyes, but he still saw that astonishing scene through the gaps in his fingers. Douluo's proud killing move, in front of the dragon breath, was like a flickering candle meeting the wind, collapsing with a boom in less than 3 breaths. Chapter 19, Killing Douluo. What was more terrifying was that the remaining force of Huang Tian's dragon breath had not diminished, and it rushed straight at Douluo, carrying an earth-shattering pressure. Poison Douluo hastily raised a jade-green shield, the spirit rings on his body flickering wildly. Yet under this attack containing the origin power of the dragon clan, the shield shattered inch by inch with a crack, as if glass struck by a heavy hammer. The dragon breath slammed solidly into Douluo's chest. This titled Douluo flew backward like a kite with a broken string, ploughing a trench dozens of meters deep into the ground. Shen Lion watched as Douluo knelt on one knee, the blood foam spilling from the corners of his mouth tinged with an eerie green. His right arm was twisted at an unnatural angle, and his eyes were filled with terror and despair. Huang Tian shook its wings, its dark golden dragon pupils sweeping toward Shen Lion. The next second, a hurricane wrapped in pressure struck. Before Shen Lion could react, he was firmly supported by Huang Tian's massive dragon claw and landed in front of Douluo with lightning speed. Shen Lion, how should this ant be dealt with? Huang Tian's voice echoed in Shen Lion's mind, carrying an unquestionable killing intent. Douluo Bo's knuckles were deeply embedded in the scorching rock, and blood mixed with jade phosphorus poison seeped from his cracked fingernails, corroding the ground and emitting wisps of green smoke. He lifted his head with difficulty, his cloudy eyes bloodshot, staring fixedly at Shen Lion, his throat emitting wheezing sounds like a broken bellows. "You are a human, yet you collude with a spirit beast." His words were wrapped in thick hatred, and the poisonous blood spilling from the corners of his mouth dripped onto the ground, instantly raising a pungent toxic mist. Shen Lion lowered his gaze, toying with the dragon-slaying blade, the blade reflecting the mockery in his eyes. He raised his head unhurriedly, a mocking arc curling at the corners of his lips. "That is none of your concern." Before the words had even faded, he turned to the side and instructed Huang Tian. "Huang Tian, finish him off, then throw his corpse into the ice and fire yin-yang well." His tone was as flat as if he were discussing a trivial matter, and then he turned his back, not sparing Douluo Bo another glance. Feeling Shen Lion's contempt, Douluo Bo's cloudy pupils suddenly contracted. His breathing became increasingly rapid, his shattered right arm trembling uncontrollably, yet he quietly gathered the last trace of his spirit power. The moment Shen Lion turned his back, a sinister look flashed across his withered face, veins bulging on his wrinkled forehead as he pressed down hard on the spirit bone, embedded with the 60,000-year Medusa skull. "Brat, just die with me." Douluo Bo roared almost madly, his whole body trembling violently as if drained of life, the final madness erupting in his eyes. In an instant, two dark purple beams shot out from his eyes. Where they passed, the space rippled with spiderweb-like cracks, and even the water molecules in the air were instantly petrified. Huang Tian snorted lazily in midair, merely watching coldly as this fatal attack went straight for Shen Lion's back, because Huang Tian understood that this kind of spirit ability related to the spirit, which Douluo Bo used, was useless against Shen Lion. Douluo Bo's twisted face was covered in perverted ecstasy, his mouth uncontrollably stretching to his ears, as if he had already seen Shen Lion petrified. However, at the critical moment when the beam touched Shen Lion, the purple flame mark on Shen Lion's brow exploded. The brilliant purple light spread like a tide, condensing into a shield in the air engraved with ancient runes. The moment the petrification beam hit the shield, it made a crisp sound like shattering glass, dissolving rapidly like ice and snow meeting the scorching sun, and the splashing energy flow instantly melted the surrounding rocks into a glass-like substance. Shen Lion turned around slowly, purple flames surging in his eyes, and the 6 spirit rings under his feet lit up one by one. The heaven-defying combination of 2 purple and 4 black rings, reflected in the light of the ice and fire yin-yang well, appeared exceptionally soul-stirring. Then Shen Lion said to Douluo Bo, "Your attack is as ridiculous as your use of poison." Douluo Bo widened his eyes, a sound of disbelief whimpering in his throat. Shen Lion raised his hand and swung the dragon-slaying blade, the dragon flame heaven-burning slash, wrapped in flames capable of burning the heavens, turning into a 100-jang giant dragon that roared and swept over. Douluo Bo desperately tried to raise his martial soul avatar, but was instantly swallowed by the dragon flames. His shrill screams echoed in the valley, eventually turning into a wisp of blue smoke that dissipated into the toxic mist of the ice and fire yin-yang well. Shen Lion reached out and beckoned, the Medusa skull floating in his palm. Shen Lion had no intention of absorbing this spirit bone, instead storing it in his storage ring. Shen Lion looked down from above as the spirit spring was rapidly soaked by the jade-green toxic mist, then kicked Douluo Bo's corpse into the pool, a cold arc curling at the corners of his mouth. Shen Lion stood at the edge of the cliff beside the ice and fire yin-yang well, watching the jade phosphorus poison mist left by Douluo Bo rolling and spreading like a living thing. The ice and fire yin-yang well was completely destroyed. Then Huang Tian's massive body hovered in midair, its dragon wings flapping to stir up a foul wind, sweeping the gravel on the ground high into the sky. It looked back at Shen Lion, then turned into a stream of light and merged into Shen Lion's body. When Shen Lion stepped out of the sunset forest, night had quietly descended. The last trace of twilight dissipated from the horizon, replaced by a sky full of stars. He stroked the storage ring in his hand, which contained the divine rank spirit bone and was full of immortal herbs, the cold touch coming from his fingertips. Tang San's mother's spirit bone is in hand, and the ice and fire yin-yang well has no more value. Where should I go next? Shen Lion muttered to himself, his voice echoing at the edge of the silent forest. The chirping of insects all around rose and fell, and occasionally the roar of beasts could be heard from afar. Shen Lion looked up at the sky, where a goshawk was circling in the clouds. Suddenly, the towering imperial city of the Heaven Dew Empire flashed through his mind. This place is closest to the capital of the Heaven Dew Empire. The Sun-Moon Empire will sooner or later annex the two great empires of the Douluo Continent, so it would be good to go and scout the situation first. Shen Lion's eyes sharpened, and he resolutely walked toward the north. After a night of trekking, the Heaven Dew Imperial City finally appeared before his eyes. The afterglow of the morning sun spilled onto the tall city walls, the cold, hard metallic luster revealing a hint of warmth. The city gate was bustling with activity, the shouts of vendors, the clatter of horse hooves, and the rumble of wheels intertwined to form a noisy symphony of the marketplace. As soon as Shen Lion approached the city gate, he saw two soldiers clad in black iron armor blocking a carriage loaded with goods. The leading soldier with a beard held the silver coins handed over by the merchant in one hand, while the other hand rested restlessly on the edge of the carriage, his lecherous eyes staring straight at the young girl inside the carriage. Just this little bit, my brothers are not easy to satisfy. The merchant smiled apologetically, bowing and pleading repeatedly, sweat rolling down his forehead. Shen Lion watched this scene coldly, walking straight ahead with his arms crossed over his chest. Stop! A soldier with a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks blocked his path with a sword, the tip almost poking his nose, and then arrogantly said to Shen Lion, "The entry fee is 10 silver coins, pay up before you leave." Shen Lion slowly raised his eyes, a cold glint flashing in his gaze, and his aura suddenly erupted like a tide. Chapter 20, Encountering Zhu Beng in Heaven Dew City. An intangible aura, like a physical weight, instantly enveloped the soldier. The soldier felt a massive force pressing down on him, his legs went soft, and with a thump, he knelt on the ground. His long blade hit the ground with a clatter, emitting a crisp sound on the stone road. Who are you?" The bearded soldier's face turned deathly pale. He tremblingly drew the sword from his waist, his voice filled with fear. Shen Lion remained unmoved. He strode past them, his sleeves brushing against the soldier's cheek, bringing with them a bone-chilling cold. The commoners at the city gate cast gazes of awe and whispered, "This person must be a powerful spirit master." Shen Lion looked at the buildings lining the city, a cold smile curling on his lips. From the chaos at this small checkpoint at the city gate, he had already glimpsed the decay of the Heaven Dew Empire under the interference of the Spirit Hall. It seems this trip to the Imperial City will certainly yield results. Shen Lion thought to himself, walking firmly into the city. Stepping onto the bluestone road of the Heaven Dew Imperial City, before Shen Lion could carefully observe the pavilions with flying eaves and arched brackets along the street, a dazzling bright yellow figure suddenly darted out from a vermilion-painted carriage. Gilded, jade-inlaid boots stepped heavily 3 paces in front of him, and the folklore python pattern embroidered on the black brocade robe fluttered wildly with the movement. "Kid, I just saw that you are very arrogant." The rebuke, delivered with a nasal tone, rushed towards him, carrying the smell of alcohol. Shen Lion raised his eyes and met a pair of slightly tipsy peach blossom eyes. The youth held a folding fan inlaid with gems. The eastern pearl on his hair crown swayed with his movements, and 6 black-armored guards behind him spread out in a fan shape, the swords at their waists gleaming coldly in the sunlight. The street fell silent instantly. Vendors hurriedly packed up their goods and hid in shops, while pedestrians clung to the walls and detoured. Shen Lion's gaze swept over the dragon-patterned jade pendant at the youth's waist, which symbolized the royal family. Combined with his understanding of the original work, he immediately guessed the person's identity, and a mocking smile curled on his lips. The 4th prince is busy with 10,000 matters a day, yet still has the leisure to meddle in the affairs of passers-by. Zhu Beng snapped his folding fan open with a snap, the 2 characters, Zyro Yao, carefree on the fan face trembling with the movement, masking the vigilance that flashed in his eyes. Could this seemingly young spirit master actually see through his identity at a glance? Could it be that he is also one of Zhu King's people? But years of pretending to be a playboy, allowed him to quickly return to his frivolous appearance. And he used his folding fan to lift Shen Lion's chin. This prince's territory is naturally determined by me. You scared my soldiers to tears at the city gate. Shouldn't you provide some compensation? Before the words died away, the guards behind him had already drawn their long blades, the blade light tracing a cold arc by Shen Lion's neck. Zhu Beng narrowed his eyes, waiting for the ugly sight of the other party panicking and begging for mercy. This was the drama he had to perform every day while playing the playboy. Watching those who prided themselves on being high-minded bow under the weight of power allowed him to temporarily forget the tragic state of his eldest and third brothers when they died suddenly, and to forget the fear of waking up in the middle of the night with a cold neck. However, Shen Lion merely chuckled, and his aura was released. Zhu Beng's pupils shrank suddenly. He clearly felt a pressure capable of crushing him and his guards rushing toward him. The folding fan in his hands snapped with a crack, and cold sweat seeped from his palms. Just as the cold sweat in Zhu Beng's palms soaked the broken fan bones, rapid footsteps and the sound of metal clashing suddenly rang out from the distant street. More than 20 guards clad in gilded black armor held long spears, pressing in like a black cloud. The jade tablet at the leader's waist refracted the cold light of the two characters, city defense, in the sunlight. Zhu Beng turned around abruptly. Seeing the eye-catching royal emblem on the guards' chests, a sickly flush instantly appeared on his pale face. "Kid, you are dead." Zhu Beng laughed maniacally, sparks flying from the broken fan bones between his fingers, and then continued to shout at Shen Lion. "This prince wants you to understand the consequences of going against me." Then Zhu Beng shouted to his 6 guards. "Our reinforcements have arrived. Quickly, go up and take care of him." The 6 personal guards looked at each other, vicious light reigniting in their eyes. With the roaring sound of spirit manifestation, wolf-head phantoms, snake-shaped sharp blades, and other spirits appeared one after another, and a fishy wind permeated the air. The scarred guard at the very front grinned hideously and swung out a chain hammer. The chain tore through the air, emitting a harsh screech. "Daring to act wild in front of the 4th prince, you're tired of living." Shen Lion backhanded his dragon-slaying blade out, the dark light flowing on the blade as cold as the smile on his lips. Facing the siege of 6 people, his figure shuttled through the blade light and soared shadows like a ghost, the hilt of his blade precisely striking the opponent's pressure points, such as the numbing point and the Kuchai point. Only a few muffled groans were heard, and the guards flew backward like kites with broken strings, the light of their spirits dimming and dissipating in the intense pain. "Surround him!" Zhu Beng's hoarse shouting caused the city defense army to close in like a tide. Shen Lion scanned the flickering spirit ring lights all around, his gaze finally landing on the sturdy figure, slowly walking out from the center of the crowd. That person's muscles were knotted all over his body, the skin exposed through the gaps in his armor shone with a bronze color, and the ferocious fire wolf tattoo on his right arm rose and fell with his breathing, as if it were about to break out of his body at any moment. Fire wolf possession. The commander roared, and a 3-meter-tall giant flame wolf suddenly appeared behind him. His figure swelled to over 2 meters, bloodthirsty light dancing in his beast-like vertical pupils. 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 1 black spirit rings rose slowly beneath his feet, and the 5th spirit ring bloomed with an eerie black light. The temperature in the air rose sharply, and wisps of blue smoke began to emerge from the stone road. "Kid, your death date has arrived." The commander's voice mixed with the wolf's howl. As he swung his claws, he brought up several Zhanglong flames, continuing to shout arrogantly at Shen Lion. "Daring to touch the 4th Highness, today I will let you turn into ashes." Zhu Beng hid behind the guards, a triumphant, hideous grin twisting on his pale face. He shook the half of the folding fan in his hand, his fingernails digging deep into his palms, and then shouted arrogantly at Shen Lion. "Kid, are you scared now? Kneel down and kowtow to me now, call me Grandpa Zhu Beng, and this prince might be merciful and perhaps leave you a whole corpse." Zhu Beng's voice was trembling, very excited, because he did not think that this person in front of him, who was about his own age, could beat a spirit king. Zhu Beng's finger joints clutching the broken fan turned white, his voice trembling with excitement. "Going against a spirit king, today you will certainly." The voice stopped abruptly. He widened his eyes, watching the dazzling light suddenly flare up around Shen Lion's body. Two eerie purple lights rose first, like ghost fires in the dark night, followed immediately by four profound black spirit rings blooming layer by layer, like a giant abyss mouth, swallowing all the surrounding light. As the spirit rings circulated, a faint, flickering dragon-shaped phantom lingered around Shen Lion, and the pressure spread out like a tangible force. The vendors on the street were pressed to the ground, and even the roof tiles in the distance were making clacking sounds. The whole street fell into a deathly silence, with only the humming sound of the spirit rings rotating. The arrogance on the city defense army commander's face instantly froze, turning into a terrified, deathly pallor. The 3-meter-tall fire wolf phantom behind him actually began to tremble, and the flames dimmed a few notches. Chapter 21: Human Stick Zhu Beng. The onlookers gasped, and whispers spread like a tidal wave. 2 purple and 4 black, how is this possible? A spirit emperor of this age, yet possessing such a terrifying spirit ring configuration. Zhu Beng stumbled back a few steps, his back slamming heavily into a guard. He felt his throat tighten. His previous arrogance had vanished, leaving only fear in his heart. Of the 36 stratagems, running away is the best. He screamed frantically in his heart, turned and shoved the guards aside, and stumbled away in a mad dash, his jade-inlaid boots pounding the ground. The East Pearl on his crown rolled off during his flight, and his bright yellow brocade robe was torn by the wooden frame of a street stall. Want to run? Shen Lion curled his lips into a cold sneer, a flash of icy light in his eyes. The dragon-slaying blade in his hand erupted with dazzling red light as he activated his first spirit ability, Crimson Flame Soul Slash. A massive wave of saber-kai, carrying searing flames, swept out. Wherever it passed, the air twisted and warped, leaving scorched black marks on the ground. The city guards didn't even have time to scream before they were sent flying like fallen leaves. The commander's fire wolf spirit shattered instantly under this terrifying attack, and he slammed heavily against the city wall, vomiting a mouthful of blood before passing out. Shen Lion tapped his toes against the ground, his figure streaking across the street like an arrow released from a bowstring. With every leap, he left deep footprints in the ground. Before the afterimages in the air could dissipate, he had already caught up behind Zhu Beng. Zhu Beng turned his head in terror to see Shen Lion, his body wreathed in dark golden light, his eyes as cold as an abyss, as if they would swallow him whole in the next second. The air was still filled with the acrid, burnt smell left by the Crimson Flame Soul Slash, but Shen Lion's figure had already flashed before Zhu Beng like a phantom. The bluestone road cracked into a spiderweb pattern where he landed, and Shen Lion stood before Zhu Beng holding the dragon-slaying blade, like an Asura from the netherworld. Zhu Beng looked up, meeting Shen Lion's emotionless eyes, and his blood instantly froze. His legs went weak, and he collapsed to the ground. The gem-encrusted belt dug into his hip bones, but terror had long since made him unable to feel physical pain. His gold-threaded cuffs were soaked with cold sweat, and he shrieked incoherently. "You cannot kill me. I am a prince of the Heaven Dew Empire. If you kill me, my imperial father will not let you off." His trembling voice carried the collapse of someone accustomed to bullying the weak when faced with absolute power. Upon hearing this, Shen Lion curled his lips into a cold arc and let out a disdainful scoff. Shen Lion slowly crouched down, the tip of the dragon-slaying blade lifting Zhu Beng's chin. The cold light reflected off his twisted face, and he said to Zhu Beng in a mocking tone, "You don't need to tell me who won't let me off. You should first worry about whether I will let you off." Before he finished speaking, his fist, carrying hidden force, rained down like a storm. Zhu Beng's screams, mixed with the sound of cracking teeth, echoed through the street. When Zhu Beng fell unconscious, a flash of cold light crossed Shen Lion's eyes. The dragon-slaying blade sliced through the air with a teeth-gritting screech, its sharp edge precisely severing Zhu Beng's right leg. Blood gushed out like a fountain. Zhu Beng, who had been unconscious, was awakened by the excruciating pain, his shrill screams piercing the sky. Shen Lion expressionlessly circulated his spirit power, wrapping the wound in a ghostly blue light to forcibly stop the gushing blood, ensuring Zhu Beng endured endless pain while fully conscious. "The game has only just begun. Don't be in such a rush, we have plenty of time." Shen Lion's voice was low and cold, like a whisper from hell. The dragon-slaying blade rose again. A flash of cold light passed, and the other leg fell in response. In the crowd, some people covered their eyes in horror, and others couldn't help but retch. but the commoners, who had long suffered under Zhu Beng's oppression, clenched their fists in the shadows, their eyes gleaming with gratification. The next few minutes were like a living hell. Shen Lion's movements were precise and cold. The dragon-slaying blade rose and fell repeatedly. Zhu Beng's arms, ears, nose, every protruding part of his body was severed one by one. The once arrogant and domineering fourth prince had now become a bloody, mutilated human stick, twitching in agony on the ground. Shen Lion did not kill Zhu Beng directly. He wanted him to die slowly in this agony. Looking at the dying Zhu Beng, Shen Lion did not stop there. He raised his hand to summon crimson flames, the raging fire instantly engulfing the severed limbs, filling the air with a mix of the smell of burnt flesh and blood. This was to prevent any possibility of a spirit master healing Zhu Beng. The flames illuminated Shen Lion's cold, stern face. He leaned down close to Zhu Beng's ear and whispered, "You pretend to be a wastrel, but do you really think no one knows? Crown Prince Zhu King has known for a long time. I am here acting on his orders to kill you." These words were like a heavy hammer, completely shattering Zhu Beng's last line of psychological defense. He widened his eyes, filled with shock, despair, and resentment. His bloodshot eyeballs seemed ready to burst from their sockets. Shen Lion had already turned and blended into the crowd, leaving Zhu Beng behind to wait for the end of his life in endless pain and resentment. When the setting sun stained the imperial city the color of blood, the smell of blood on the street had not yet dissipated. After Shen Lion left, 300 imperial palace guards marched in unison to seal off the scene, their silver spear tips gleaming coldly in the twilight. A gorgeously decorated carriage slowly drove up. The wheels crushed the blood Zhu Beng had dripped, dragging long, dark red trails across the bluestone. Zhu King lifted the gold-threaded carriage curtain. His moon-white brocade robe was spotless, but his gentle, jade-like face distorted instantly upon seeing the tragic scene on the ground. He stumbled over, his wide sleeves sweeping across the scattered flesh, and cried out hypocritically, "Fourth brother, who did this to you? Tell second brother, and second brother will avenge you." His trembling voice carried just the right amount of sorrow, but through his hanging hair, the corners of his lips curled into a fleeting arc. Zhu Beng's cloudy eyes struggled to move. Looking at the hypocritical appearance of the person before him, Shen Lion's words, "I am here acting on his orders to kill you," exploded in his ears. He let out a garbled roar from his throat, the blood bubbles overflowing from his mouth burst, and he finally passed out in violent convulsions. Seeing this, Zhu King immediately turned around and covered his forehead, a barely perceptible sneer leaking through his fingers. Quickly carry His Highness the fourth prince onto the carriage. Summon the imperial physician." After Zhu Beng was hurriedly carried away, Zhu King stood in the center of the pool of blood and began his performance. He turned abruptly, his wide sleeves sweeping across a guard's face mask. "Search the whole city for the culprit who harmed my fourth brother. I want to see him alive or see his corpse." Following his order, the imperial guards poured into the streets and alleys like a tidal wave, causing chaos throughout the street. When the carriage curtain was lowered again, the atmosphere inside suddenly turned icy. Cayenne Renxiu shed the disguise of Zhu King, her golden hair cascading down like a waterfall, and dark patterns shimmered on her holy white dress. She raised her hand to wipe away the remaining tear stains from the corners of her eyes, and a pale golden flame condensed at her fingertips, burning the blood-stained handkerchief to ash. Chapter 22. Cayenne Renxiu sends someone to follow. Young Lord Porcupinefish has already caught up with that youth. Snake Lance Douluo appeared from the shadows with a hunched back, his scale-covered arms casting eerie black shadows inside the carriage. Cayenne Renxiu stroked the hilt of her angelic sacred sword before speaking. He is already a spirit emperor at such a young age, and his spirit ring configuration is so heaven-defying. This means he is very likely a successor to another god position. Cayenne Renxiu suddenly clenched her fist, causing the air inside the carriage to crackle faintly, and then said, "Spare no cost to find out his background. If he cannot be used by me, then let him remain in the dark alleys of Heaven Dew City forever." The night was like ink, shrouding the bustle of Heaven Dew City. Shen Lion pushed open the carved wooden door of a room on the second floor of the Yuelai Inn. As the candlelight flickered, his slender silhouette was cast upon the window lattice. A faint scent of sandalwood drifted in the air, but it could not mask the trace of blood coming from the corner, the scent of a pursuer. Shen Lion, there is a poisonous fish hiding in the shadows of the west corner. Huang Tian's voice echoed in Shen Lion's sea of consciousness, carrying a hint of playful murderous intent. Shen Lion's fingertips brushed over the hilt of the dragon-slaying blade, a cold sneer tugging at the corners of his lips. He walked slowly to the window, looking at the bustling night market downstairs, then suddenly flicked his finger, and the candlelight went out with a puff. In the darkness, dark golden light surged around Shen Lion, and the massive phantom of Huang Tian's dragon soul flickered behind him. A majestic pressure spread out like a tidal wave. The wooden beams let out an unbearable creaking sound, and the window paper bulged under the invisible force. Outside the door, Porcupinefish Douluo's pupils shrank, his spike-covered back pressed tightly against the cold wall. Cold sweat seeped from the titled Douluo's forehead, sliding down his twisted face and wetting the purple robe on his chest. That pressure was actually even more overbearing than that of the high priest, Qian Dailiu. "Go and call the person who ordered you to follow me right now." Shen Lion's voice, wrapped in spirit power, clearly transmitted through the door panel into Porcupinefish's ears. Every word felt like a heavy hammer striking his heart. "Otherwise, I don't mind going to find her myself, but by then, I cannot guarantee whether I will kill her or not." Before the words faded, a clear sound of a blade being unsheathed came from inside the room. A cold light pierced through the crack in the door, casting a chilling shadow at Porcupinefish's feet. Porcupinefish Douluo's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed his overwhelming fear. He turned abruptly, his back spikes shattering the corridor railing, and his entire body transformed into a streak of purple light, shooting into the sky. In the night sky, his frantic escape formed a stark contrast with the lights of 10,000 homes, while Shen Lion leaned against the door frame, watching the receding afterimage. In the study of the Crown Prince's mansion, dragon saliva incense rose in curls from the gilded beast burner, but it could not mask the tense, murderous atmosphere in the air. Snake Lance Douluo's scale-covered fingers tapped unconsciously on the rosewood desk, making a tap-tap sound, his eyes fixed on the slightly ajar door. When Porcupinefish Douluo burst through the carved wooden door, the sheepskin scrolls on the desk were blown away by the resulting gust of wind. "Porcupinefish, how did it go? Did you keep track of that youth?" Snake Lance Douluo stood up abruptly, the bone spikes on his waist brushing against his armor with a harsh sound. Porcupinefish Douluo was panting heavily. His purple robe soaked with cold sweat, and the spikes on his back were still trembling uncontrollably. He staggered 2 steps to support himself on the door frame, his bloodshot eyes fixed on Qian Renxiu, who was sitting in the main seat. "Young lord, I followed that person, but after following him to where he lives, he discovered me." The words stopped abruptly. He swallowed the metallic taste of blood in his throat, then continued to say to Qian Renxiu, "Moreover, there is an exceptionally powerful person by his side. His aura is even stronger than the high priest." Bang! The white jade teacup in Qian Renxiu's hand shattered instantly, and the scalding tea splashed onto her moon-white skirt, blooming into dark stains. She stood up abruptly, her long golden hair flying with the movement, and the phantom of the angelic sacred sword flickered behind her. Stronger than grandfather. As her pupils shrank, she remembered the shock of witnessing Qian Dailiu perform a divine skill in her childhood. That was a pressure that could bathe the entire sky in golden light, and then she continued. "Could his god position be even more powerful than my angel god? No, impossible. The angel god is the most powerful in the Douluo Continent." The last words were almost squeezed out from between her teeth, carrying the anger of having her authority challenged. Porcupinefish Douluo fell to his knees with a thud, his forehead hitting the blue bricks heavily. "Young lord, I believe the angel god is the most powerful." When he raised his head, blood had already seeped from his forehead, and then he continued to say to Qian Renxiu, "But that youth asked me to tell you that if you do not go to see him, he will bring people to kill you. Even if we send a pigeon message to the high priest now, by the time reinforcements arrive." Before the words faded, Snake Lance Douluo had already punched the wall. As bricks and stones flew, he roared, "This is simply too much." Qian Renxiu gripped her skirt tightly until her knuckles turned white. The moonlight outside the window spilled onto her face through the lattice, cutting her exquisite features into light and shadow. After a long while, she took a deep breath, sat back in her high seat, and her tone returned to its usual cold arrogance. Go, there is nothing we can do about him now. Instead, our own lives are in his hands. Kayan Renxu stood up slowly, the golden patterns of the angel spirit shimmering in the darkness. She looked out into the deep night sky outside the window, a dangerous arc tugging at the corners of her lips. Interesting, let's go. Let us meet this mysterious successor of another god position. I hope he can withstand the wrath of the angel. After speaking, she stepped out of the door first. Snake Lance and Porcupinefish looked at each other behind her, gripped their weapons, and followed. The three figures soon disappeared into the night. The inn where Shen Lion stayed was greyish-blue under the moonlight, and the copper bells on the eaves made faint sounds in the draught, as if signaling the arrival of a storm. When the three figures landed outside the inn, Shen Lion was leaning by the window, toying with that head spirit bone from Douluo, the faint blue light swirling in his eyes. Let your master come in alone, the other two wait outside. Shen Lion's voice, wrapped in spirit power, penetrated the door panel with unquestionable pressure. The candlelight in the room suddenly flickered violently, casting twisted shadows on the walls. Impossible! Snake Lance Douluo roared, his bone-spike-covered arm slamming heavily onto the door frame, sending wood splinters flying. Porcupinefish Douluo behind him subconsciously took half a step back, recalling that terrifying pressure earlier. The spikes on his back bristled slightly again. What if you harbor malicious intentions toward the young lord? Snake Lance's roar was mixed with the aura of a titled Douluo, and the aura of his martial soul avatar was faintly overflowing. Shen Lion sneered, and the dark golden light in his palm surged violently. The phantom of Huang Tian's dragon soul suddenly appeared in the room, its massive body almost reaching the rafters. As the dragon's breath exhaled, the air emitted a piercing explosion. If I really wants to kill her, you would all be dead by now. The moment the words fell, the entire inn trembled, and the locust tree outside the window was snapped by an invisible force, its branches and leaves flying everywhere. Chapter 23, The Fantasy of Kayan Renxu. Kayan Renxu's expression shifted slightly. Gazing at the dark golden light emanating from the inn's window and recalling Porcupinefish's earlier description, she finally became convinced that the person before her was far from ordinary. Gritting her teeth, she raised a hand to stop Snake Lance, who was about to argue further. Retreat. Though her voice was cold, it could not hide a trace of trepidation. With a creak, the carved wooden door slowly opened. Kayan Renxu stepped into the room alone, her moon-white robes trailing across the floor. Beneath sleeves embroidered with gold thread, her fingers clenched slightly. The room was suffused with a faint scent of dragon breath and blood. Under the candlelight, Shen Lion leaned back in a grand armchair, the dragon-slaying blade resting horizontally across his lap, dark light flowing over it. Restore your original appearance before we talk. Shen Lion raised his eyes, his gaze as sharp as a falcon's, piercing straight through her disguise. Kayan Renxu's heart jolted. The other party had actually seen through her disguise at a single glance. After a moment of hesitation, golden light flared around her. Zhuqing's gentle countenance slowly faded, replaced by a stunningly beautiful face. Her golden hair cascaded like a waterfall, and her features revealed the sanctity and arrogance unique to the angel spirit. Dark patterns flowed across her holy white dress, as if adorned with stars. Shen Lion's pupils constricted. He had to admit that Kayan Renxu's beauty was incredibly striking, like a fairy descending from an altar. But soon he recalled her various actions in the original story where she waited for her enemy, Tang San, to become a god, and a trace of mockery welled up in his heart. As expected of an angel spirit wielder and a successor to the angel god. Shen Lion stood up with a faint smile and paced slowly around Kayan Renxu, thinking to himself, "It is a pity that no matter how beautiful the skin, it cannot hide the essence of a love-struck fool. Waiting for an enemy to become a god is, in my view, utterly foolish." The candles in the room flickered, casting distorted and twisted shadows of the two people against the wall. Kayan Renxu felt tense under Shen Lion's direct gaze. Her white teeth subconsciously bit her lower lip, and her fingers curled into fists beneath her holy white dress. "Speak, what do you want me here for?" Kayan Renxu tried to keep her voice steady, but it still betrayed an imperceptible tremor. Shen Lion leaned sideways in the grand armchair, his long fingers rhythmically tapping the armrest, creating a crisp sound. Hearing this, he raised an eyebrow and chuckled, his eyes filled with mockery. Was it not you who sent people to follow me, and now you ask what I want to do? Shen Lion deliberately drew out the end of his sentence, his tone full of sarcasm, as if watching a comical farce. Kyan Rengsu's chest heaved violently. Her golden hair lifted slightly with the movement, and the phantom of her angel spirit flickered behind her. She suppressed the anger in her heart, and when she spoke again, her voice was as cold as frost. Speak plainly, what did you bring me here for? As her words fell, her gaze suddenly fixed on the center of Shen Lion's brow. A purple flame mark faintly appeared there, similar to her own angel mark. Her pupils contracted sharply, and she was certain in her heart, this is the mark of a successor to a god position. Shen Lion seemed to notice her discovery. The corners of his mouth curled into a meaningful smile as he suddenly stood up and closed in on her. Kyan Rengsu instinctively took a half-step back, her back pressing against the cold wall, yet she still forced herself to maintain eye contact with him. Then I will speak plainly. Shen Lion lowered his voice, dark golden spirit power circulating around his body, and continued to say to Kyan Rengsu, I want the distribution maps and garrison locations of all the Heaven Du Empire's armies, and I also want to know which high-level combatants the Heaven Du Empire possesses. These words struck like a heavy hammer, leaving Kyan Rengsu's mind dazed. She widened her eyes in disbelief. Why would a successor to a god position want these? Then Kyan Rengsu asked, what are you doing with this? She could not imagine why the other party coveted the military secrets of the Heaven Du Empire. What kind of ambition was hidden behind this? You do not need to worry about that, just give them to me. Shen Lion reached out and pinched her chin, forcing her to look at him. A trace of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes as he continued to say to Kyan Rengsu, I will give you 3 days. 3 days from now, come here and deliver what I want. Having said this, he abruptly released her, turned, and sat back in his seat, assuming an impatient posture of seeing a guest out. Kyan Rengsu stumbled and steadied herself against the corner of the table, her fingertips digging deep into her palms. She was filled with anger and resentment, but upon remembering Huang Tian's terrifying pressure, she had to swallow her fury. Just as she was calculating how to mobilize the power of the Elder Hall, Shen Lion's cold voice came again. By the way, if you want to send people from your Spirit Hall and Elder Hall to deal with me, then you must be prepared for them all to die. This sentence was like a basin of cold water poured over her. Kyan Rengsu dared not gamble, especially after confirming that Shen Lion was also a successor to a god position. She felt chilled to the bone. She bit her lip hard. As she turned, her skirt swept across the candlestick, nearly knocking it over. After returning to the Crown Prince's residence, she realized her palms had long since been pierced by her nails. Blood dripped down her white sleeves, blooming like an eerie flower on the floor. She only stared blankly at her hands, Shen Lion's threats echoing constantly in her mind. For the first time, she felt a trace of fear for the future, yet surprisingly, a different emotion toward Shen Lion emerged in her heart. If Shen Lion knew this, he would surely say, as expected of one of the 3 love-struck fools of Spirit Hall, you even have an M attribute. Inside the study of the Crown Prince's residence, the golden silk palace lanterns cast a soft glow, but they could not mask the chill radiating from Kyan Rengsu. Kyan Rengsu's hand, holding the wolf hair brush, trembled slightly, and the ink smudged into irregular blobs on the rice paper. Beneath her brush was the most classified military deployment map of the Heaven Du Empire. Each camp location, she wrote down, felt like cutting out her own heart. What on earth does he want to do? Kyan Rengsu murmured, the tip of her brush pressing heavily onto the paper, tearing through it. She bit her lower lip, her mind constantly replaying the mysterious purple flame mark on Shen Lion's brow. Suddenly, she thought of a reason that seemed reasonable to her. The path to becoming the angel god relied on the power of faith from believers to coalesce into a divine core. Could it be? Kyan Rengsu suddenly raised her head, a flash of realization in her eyes. He wants to emulate the angel god and collect the power of faith to strengthen his god position. This thought sent a chill down her spine. But soon she straightened her back, a cold smile curling on her lips. The angel spirit model on her desk shimmered in the light, as if giving her strength. With the influence of Spirit Hall, half of the high-level spirit masters on the Douluo Continent believe in the angel god. Her nails dug deep into her palms, and she muttered to herself, "Shen Lion, you will never be able to shake the status of the angel god." Outside the window, the night deepened, and the sound of the watchman's drum came from afar. Kyan Renxiu looked at the complete deployment map in her hand, her eyes gradually turning ruthless. She carefully rolled up the map and placed it into a gold-rimmed wooden box, as if performing some kind of ritual. "Once I inherit the angel god position," she said softly to the darkness, "I will repay the humiliation you have inflicted upon me 1,000 times over." At this moment, if Shen Lion were present, he would surely lean against the doorframe and scoff aloud. He might flick the dragon-slaying blade in his hand and raise an eyebrow, saying, "Child, you are overthinking it." After all, in his plan, the military secrets of the Heaven Dew Empire were merely a prerequisite for the Sun Moon Empire to annex the two empires of the Douluo Continent later, and had nothing to do with the power of faith for becoming a god. But Kyan Renxiu had no way of knowing this. She could only brew the flames of revenge amidst her own speculations. Chapter 24, Future Plans, Heading to Star Luo. The morning mist in Heaven Dew City was like gauze, wrapping around the grey-blue eaves. 3 days had passed. When Kyan Renxiu's figure appeared at the entrance of the inn's alley, the copper bell on the eaves suddenly rang without wind, startling several resting grey sparrows. Today she had shed her luxurious palace attire, wearing a plain white martial outfit covered by a black cloak. The gold-threaded angel pattern embroidered on the edge of the cloak flickered in the mist, and the sandalwood box she held in her hands emitted a cold light. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to infinite novel audiobooks. The item is here. Kyan Renxiu placed the wooden box on the table, her voice as cold as a frozen lake, then continued to say to Shen Lion, "However, your plan to use the power of faith to enhance divine force is destined to be in vain." Her gaze swept over the faint purple mark on Shen Lion's forehead, with a hint of imperceptible contempt in her tone, and she said to him, "The power of faith of the Douluo Continent will only belong to the angel god." Shen Lion raised an eyebrow, his fingertips pausing just as they touched the wooden box. He watched Kyan Renxiu's retreating back as she turned to leave, the hem of her cloak kicking up a cloud of dust as it swept over the threshold, and doubt rose in his heart. Power of faith increasing divine force, what kind of nonsense is this woman spouting? Shen Lion shook his head, casting this inexplicable guess from his mind, and his attention was immediately drawn to the sheepskin scroll inside the wooden box. The moment he unfolded the map, Shen Lion's pupils contracted with excitement. The Heaven Dew Mountain Range, outlined in cinnabar, wound like a giant dragon, and the 37 military camps marked with secret codes were scattered among them like chess pieces. His fingertips traced the black-armored cavalry camp, mark on the east side of the Sunset Forest, which detailed the spirit configuration of 2,000 cavalrymen, with a surprising 30% being wolf-type beast spirits. "Idiots!" Shen Lion chuckled, pressing his fingertip heavily on the red dot marked Spirit Master Reserve Camp, and then muttered to himself, "Although the Sun Moon Empire's spirit tools are not as powerful as they will be 10,000 years from now, they are at the level of 4th or 5th grade. When the Sun Moon Empire's armor-piercing shells arrive, can your wolf claws tear through alloy armor?" Shen Lion's thoughts drifted back to the underground workshop at the Sun Moon Royal Spirit Tool Academy 3 years ago. Back then, when his grandfather lifted the dust cover to reveal the 3-meter-tall, mountain-breaking, soul guidance cannon, the roar of the gears turning seemed to still be in his ears. That war machine, equipped with 5th-grade shock shells, had once shattered a 100-meter diameter basalt rock with a single shot in a simulation test. And the Heaven Dew City defenses marked on the map at this moment were merely blue stone walls reinforced with spirit power. 4th to 5th grade spirit tools. Shen Lion's fingertips traced the border line of the Star Luo Empire on the map, where 3 major fortresses were circled in ink, and he continued, "That's enough." Shen Lion's gaze swept over the dense military camp, markings on the map like a hawk, and a cruel arc curled at the corner of his mouth. "When the time comes, the armies of those empires will all turn into ghosts under the spirit tools." Shen Lion's voice was low and cold, carrying unquestionable killing intent. Candlelight danced in his eyes, reflecting his eyes full of ambition and madness. For those high-tier combat powers that the Douluo Continent was so proud of, Shen Lion just sneered contemptuously. He slowly stood up, paced to the window, and looked at the twinkling stars in the night sky, as if he saw the battlefield of the future. To be able to bring the Sun Moon Empire's army across such a long distance, it must be when I become a god. By then, the so-called experts of the Douluo Continent will be nothing but ants in the face of a god's power. A single move will be enough to crush them all. After saying this, Shen Lion flicked his finger, rolled up the defensive map, and shoved it casually into his storage ring. His movements were dashing and careless, as if that secret, which concerned the lives of millions, was nothing more than a piece of waste paper. After tidying his clothes, he walked to the door, pushed open the carved wooden door, and the cold morning wind rushed to his face. Shen Lion stood under the eaves, took a deep breath, and a pair of giant vermilion bird wings suddenly unfolded from his back. The crimson feathers shimmered with a metallic luster under the morning sun, and every single feather flowed with powerful spirit power fluctuations. With a loud phoenix cry, the wings flapped fiercely, and the powerful air wave blew the surrounding roof tiles away. Shen Lion was like a red meteor, streaking across the sky, speeding towards the direction of the Star Luo Empire. The Heaven Dew city below gradually became smaller, and Shen Lion looked down, his eyes full of disdain. Shen Lion already had the following blueprint in his mind. Infiltrate the Star Luo Empire, find a way to obtain their defensive map, and pave the way for the Sun Moon Empire's army. Star Luo Empire, just wait. Shen Lion thought to himself, next, it will be your turn. The frequency of his vermilion bird wings flapping became faster and faster, and in the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared into the clouds, leaving only a long red trail behind. When the faint light of dawn pierced through the clouds, the vermilion bird wings that Shen Lion had spread were sweeping across the vast forest sea on the border of the Star Luo Empire. The morning mist surged between the crimson feathers. Suddenly, a sound of metal clashing mixed with the sound of trees breaking came from below, startling a group of night owls in the forest. Shen Lion's pupils contracted slightly, his wings folded suddenly, and he fell vertically like a meteor. At a distance of 3 zhang from the ground, he suddenly unfolded his wings, hovering steadily on the top of an ancient pine tree. On the open ground below, 3 balls of spirit power light shone upon each other. 3 middle-aged men dressed in black silk martial outfits stood in a triangular formation, with ghostly green cat-type spirit projections rising around them. The leading spirit king had fine hair covering his neck, and the 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 1 black spirit rings behind him were shining brightly. The 4 rings of the other 2 spirit ancestors were slightly dimmer, but they still dyed the forest a strange grey-blue. Their prey was a young girl wearing tight black clothes, who was now pressing her back against a broken giant tree. Moonlight flowed on her pale cheeks, outlining the perfect jawline. Second young miss, just surrender. The spirit king licked his lips, his fingernails turning into half-foot-long sharp claws, scraping a harsh sound on the tree trunk, and then continued. The eldest young miss said, as long as you are willing to obediently follow us back and stop causing trouble, and stop resisting, she can let you experience the status and position of the real second young miss of the Zhu family in this final period of time, and let you live comfortably. He deliberately dragged out the end of his sentence, his gaze wandering unscrupulously over the young girl. Zhu Zhuqing gripped the blood-stained dagger tighter, her knuckles turning white. Her long black hair was stuck to her cheeks with cold sweat, but her exposed eyes were shockingly bright. No way, I will definitely forge a path to survival. I will fight to survive. I won't go back and wait for death. Before she finished speaking, she suddenly exploded into action, the dagger stabbing towards the throat of the spirit ancestor on the right like a poisonous snake. You have a death wish. The spirit king sneered, and his 3rd spirit ring suddenly lit up with purple light. 5 translucent cat-claw phantoms instantly condensed in the air, carrying a sharp whistle that tore through the air, and slammed fiercely towards Zhu Zhuqing. The young girl rolled on the ground in a hurry, but her back was still hit by the air blast. A mouthful of blood sprayed out, and her whole body hit the tree trunk like a kite with a broken string. The ancient tree groaned under the unbearable weight. She slumped at the roots of the tree, her black clothes torn into several cuts by the sharp claws, oozing blood beads. The spirit king walked forward slowly, the sound of his boot soles crushing the fallen leaves exceptionally clear in the silent forest. Second young miss, you brought this upon yourself. Now that we are taking you back, all the conditions the eldest young miss promised earlier are gone. He stretched out his sharp claws, and it looked like he was about to grab the young girl's shoulders. Chapter 25, Rescuing Zhu Zhuqing. Just then, the mist in the forest was suddenly split apart by a scorching blade wind, a crimson slash descending like a falling star, precisely striking 3 inches in front of the Spirit King's claws. The ground erupted with spiderweb cracks, and the Spirit King felt an overwhelming force surge toward him, causing his entire arm to go numb and ache, forcing him to take 3 involuntary steps back, while his wrist bone emitted a faint, crack sound. "Who is it? Come out!" The 3 Zhu family elders stood back to back in a triangle formation, their spirit phantoms expanding to 3 feet in height, with dark green spirit power condensing into substance at their claw tips. The Spirit King stared at the swirling mist in the treetops, his pupils contracting in shock and suspicion. The speed of that blade just now far exceeded the realm of a Spirit King in his understanding. Shen Lion's figure drifted down like a falling leaf, his vermilion bird wings turning into a stream of light and merging into his body the moment he landed. He leaned casually on the dragon-slaying blade, the blade slanted into the soil, with dark golden patterns flowing in the morning light. Seeing that he appeared to be only 16 or 17 years old, the Spirit King immediately curled his lips into a disdainful arc. "Kid, you've got a lot of nerve, daring to meddle in our Zhu family's affairs, and still wanting to play the hero saving the beauty. Today, I'll let you die here. You should leave quickly, you are no match for the 3 of them." Zhu Zhuqing's voice came from behind, carrying the fishy sweetness of blood foam. Shen Lion turned around and saw the young girl propping herself up against a tree trunk. The blood seeping from beneath her black clothes, having already stained her garments red. He suddenly smiled, lightly flicking the back of the blade with his fingertip, producing a clear, melodious ring. "Little kitty, watch closely." Then 6 spirit rings burst forth from beneath Shen Lion's feet. 2 eerie purple glows rose first, followed immediately by 4 profound black rings that layered and spread out, each one emitting a suffocating pressure. As the spirit rings rotated, the mist in the forest was forcibly pushed back by Zhang. Spirit Emperor." The Spirit King's pupils suddenly contracted into needle points, and his right leg, which was supporting his body, began to tremble uncontrollably. He had cultivated for over 30 years to reach the Spirit King rank, yet the youth before him was already a Spirit Emperor, and his spirit ring configuration was so heaven-defying, 2 purple and 4 black, which meant the first 2 rings were both over 1,000 years old, and the latter 4 were at least 10,000 years old. Zhu Zhuqing held her bleeding side, too shocked to feel the pain. The strongest person she had ever seen was the Emperor of the Star Luo Empire. As a titled Douluo, even his spirit rings had not shocked her as much as Shen Lion's. At this moment, the spirit rings beneath Shen Lion's feet were like 6 claps of thunder, shattering her perception of spirit power ranks. When the 4th black ring lit up, she could even feel her own Hell-Sivet spirit trembling. A thought flashed through her mind like lightning. If I follow him, I might be able to truly become strong, and then I can truly control my own destiny. The Zhu family Spirit King's Adam's apple bobbed violently, and cold sweat slid down his twisted face, soaking the Zhu family emblem on his collar until it darkened. He forced himself to stand on his trembling legs, but his voice rose uncontrollably. "Little friend, we are people from the Star Luo Zhu family. If you kill us, even if you are a Spirit Emperor, our Zhu family will send people to deal with you." Before he could finish speaking, the 2 spirit ancestors beside him had already subconsciously taken half a step back, their dark green cat spirit phantoms nearly transparent under Shen Lion's pressure. Shen Lion chuckled, the dragon-slaying blade spinning in his palm, the cold light reflected by the blade making his brows and eyes appear even more piercing. "Threatening me?" Shen Lion raised an eyebrow, his 2nd spirit ring suddenly lighting up with an eerie purple glow, the temperature in the forest rising instantly, and withered leaves curling into ash in the heat wave. Then let the Zhu family remember well what price must be paid for speaking wild words. The moment the 2nd spirit ability, Vermilion Bird Unrivaled, was activated, the air emitted a piercing explosive sound. The crimson spirit power wrapped around the blade like a living creature, transforming into a 3 Shanghai Vermilion Bird Phantom. As the fiery red wings stretched out, they burned the morning mist to nothing, and wherever the tail feathers swept, the trees carbonized with a roar. The three Zhu family elders' pupils contracted sharply, and the spirit king hastily raised his arms to block, only to see the vermilion bird's sharp beak pierce through his proud protective spirit power. The screams came to an abrupt end. The vermilion bird carried the three figures into the clouds, and a blinding burst of fire exploded in midair. Shen Lion stood with his hands behind his back, watching the charred remains fall like raindrops. Zhu Zhuqing leaned against the tree trunk, staring blankly at the youth's tall and straight back, the crimson spirit power lingering around him, and the flames of the vermilion bird reflected each other, making him look like a war god returning from purgatory. Remember this lesson. Shen Lion leaned down to pick up a piece of the family emblem that was still smoking, his thumb lightly brushing across the character, Zhu, the fragment instantly melting into molten iron, and then he continued. In the face of absolute power, the so-called family is nothing but a joke. Then Shen Lion turned to look at Zhu Zhuqing, the killing intent in his eyes turning into tenderness. Can you stand up? I'll take you to treat your wounds. Just as Shen Lion finished speaking, Zhu Zhuqing, like a kite with a broken string, went limp and fell straight down. He was quick-eyed and nimble-handed, his long arms sweeping out to catch the young girl just in time. When his fingertips touched the sticky blood on her waist, the contact felt warm, and Shen Lion's heart tightened abruptly. Little kitty. Shen Lion called out softly, his fingertips reaching toward Zhu Zhuqing's carotid artery. On Zhu Zhuqing's paper-pale face, cold sweat was constantly sliding down her jawline, and her eyelashes cast trembling shadows beneath her eyes. Brushing aside her messy hair, Shen Lion gasped. On Zhu Zhuqing's back, 3 claw marks deep enough to see the bone had turned the flesh inside out, dark red blood was gushing out, and the air was filled with a nauseating smell of blood. What was even more troublesome was that her breathing was weak and chaotic, and clearly, her internal organs had also suffered heavy damage. Shen Lion dared not hesitate, and his spirit power flowed into Zhu Zhuqing's body like a trickling stream. Under the wrapping of his spirit power, the blood at the wounds gradually coagulated, but the young girl remained unconscious. He looked at the lifeless, delicate body in his arms, his brows knitting into a river character. After all, Shen Lion was not like other novel protagonists who were all experts in medical arts. Then Shen Lion carefully scooped Zhu Zhuqing up horizontally in his arms, preparing to look for a nearby town or village. The morning mist in the forest gradually dispersed, and Shen Lion spread his vermilion bird wings and soared into the air. The young girl in his arms was shockingly light. Through her thin clothing, he could even clearly feel her protruding ribs. As expected of the Hell Civet, this waste. Shen Lion muttered to himself, suddenly thinking of Zhu Zhuqing's tragic past, his eyes gradually becoming complex. The wind whistled in his ears, but Shen Lion's thoughts drifted to the distant future. He had seen the Zhu Zhuqing in the original work, who silently endured among the Shrek's 7 devils, and he had seen the helplessness of having to rely on Dai Mubai for survival. Clearly a person with decent talent, yet she has to be bound by the family's broken rules and men. Shen Lion's fingertips unconsciously rubbed the hilt of the dragon-slaying blade, and then he continued to think. Dai Mubai, that coward, abandoned her to face Dai Weisi and crown Princess Consort Zhu Jian alone. After reuniting, he went back to his debauchery. He really isn't worthy of her. Thinking of the members of the Shrek 7 devils, Shen Lion snorted coldly. Enning Rongrong goes without saying, a spoiled young miss, arrogant. Tangsen goes without saying, possessive, double-standard and overprotective. Zyro Wu is extremely emotional, prioritizing everything around Tang San. Once she acts on impulse, she considers nothing else. Ma Hongzhen goes without saying, someone who hangs out with Dai Mubai. Only Oscar is somewhat clear-headed, but unfortunately, he eventually became an appendage of Ning Rongrong. He looked down at Zhu Zhuqing in his arms. On the young girl's pale face, there was still an unextinguished stubbornness, and then he said, "It's only you, after all, who has been fighting for your own destiny from beginning to end." And that is it for today's chapter. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an upload. Drop a comment below, I want to know what you think is coming next. See you in the next one. Check out my other channel, AI Otaku Studio. and I'll see you in the next chapter.